ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu, na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amin. Ring the bell. Quorum.
Yeah, but it will be very sad, but yeah. Yes, yes. I can give you.
Yes, salam. Yes.
It's okay. I was worried.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Honorable members, we do have quorum from the look of things. I have a message here, and the message is from the Senate. Passage of the county government's additional allocation, number 2 bill, Senate bills number 4 of 2022. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 41-4 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I wish to convey to the House that I have received a message from the Senate regarding the passage of county government's additional allocations, number 2 bill, Senate bills number 4 of 2022. Honorable members, the county government's additional allocations, number 2 bill, Senate bills number 4 of 2022, was published by Kenya Gazette Supplement number 163 of 26th October 2022 as a bill to provide for the additional allocations to county governments for the year 2022-2023 financial year. The responsibilities of national government and county governments pursuant to such allocations and for connected purposes. Honorable members, the message conveys that on Tuesday, the 22nd of November, 2022, the Senate considered and passed the said bill with amendments and now seeks the concurrence of the National Assembly on the bill. Honorable members, Standing Order number 143, sub 1C requires the Speaker to cause a bill received from the Senate to be read at first time upon conveyance of its message. I therefore direct the clerk to have the bill listed in the order paper for the first reading for the next sitting. Pursuant to Standing Order number 143-2, the bill now stands referred to the Budget and Appropriations Committee for consideration. I urge the committee to prioritize the bill for its possible conclusion before the House proceeds on recess next week, given its urgency. The House is accordingly informed. Thank you. Yes, Honorable Wanda, you are rising on. Yes. Yeah.
I'm just rising pursuant to the communication we just delivered concerning that bill that has come from the Senate, and a bill whose import, without necessarily preempting debate, a bill whose import is the increased allocation of revenues or funds to the counties. And you have indicated, of course, quite correctly, that you'd want this House to consider it before it goes on the long recess. Mr. Speaker, that is fairly okay. But the only issue I have is, even as we rush to conclude these matters, I'm aware that a number of counties, as we speak, have not yet received their rightful allocations from the National Treasury. As we speak, there are counties which are basically operating on shoestring budgets. Counties whose service delivery and other operations have basically ground to a halt as a result of either delayed or totally lack of release of funds that have been duly allocated to those counties by not only this House, but by the Senate as well. So even as we endeavor to prosecute that matter, Honorable Speaker, I'm just bringing the attention of the House that something still needs to be done. Because you know, Mr. Speaker, these counties are a lifeline to some of us. In this country, Mr. Speaker, the only money you can be sure of is the money which has gone to the counties and the constituencies. Monies which have been left here in Nairobi is money which you cannot be sure of. You cannot be sure of if history is to go by. It is money which is at the mercy of a clique, a small clique of persons who think that these resources belong to them. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I would want to, as we consider this matter in the fullness of time, I would want to appeal once more to the National Treasury that they release all monies which are correctly and properly due to county governments, so that those monies can be used to provide services to our people, even though we know a few county governments are involved in wanton corruption. But that should not be a hindrance to frequent and proper release of funds. Thank you. There's nothing out of order, you know. Thank you.
What's your point of order, Honorable Chepkonga? Can you come forward then, if you can't get that one right? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I was not going to raise on a point of order against the minority leader, but since he appears to be protesting that I have
also bias. It's overtaken.
No. I'm raising on a point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I requested the substantive speaker for a ruling with regard to the Committee on Delegation on matters to do with regulations that have not been forwarded to the committee. And Mr. Speaker, while I'm still there, you should have ruled Honorable Pio Wandai out of order for raising Senate issues. Raising Senate issues on the floor of the National Assembly.
Order. You don't direct the chair. You don't direct the chair. The information I have is that that communication is ready and it will be delivered on Tuesday next week. Proceed. Next. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Any papers to be laid by the majority leader or his deputy or the chief whip? Majority leader, do you have papers to lay on the...
Honorable Speaker, I have papers to lay. But the leader of minority was engaging me on other papers that are yet to be laid. So I was just informing him that those will come later at the appropriate time. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, allow me to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, November 24th, 2022. Legal notice number 213 of 2022 relating to the Public Finance Management Financial Inclusion Fund Regulations 2022 and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury. The annual report and financial statements of the Office of the Auditor General Staff Car Loan Scheme for the year ended 30th June 2017. The annual report and financial statements of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority for the financial year ended 30th June 2020. The annual report and financial statements of the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency for the year ended 30th June 2020. Annual report, the second quarterly report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission for the period covering 1st April 2022 to 30th June 2022. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Pwani University, Kenya Maritime Authority Staff Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme, Kamukunji Technical and Vocational College, Gong Technical and Vocational College, National Council for Persons with Disabilities, Child Welfare Society of Kenya, Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, National Council of Children's Services, Kenya Industrial Property Institute, Scrap Metal Council, Cast Talanta Football Club, Karatina University, Kirinyaga University, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, Local Authorities Provident Fund, Prisons Farms Revolving Fund, National Social Security Fund, National Youth Service Mechanical and Transport Fund, Rural Electrification Scheme, Registration of Certified Public Secretaries Board, Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examinations Board, Institute of Certified Investment and Financial Analysts, the Retirement Benefits Authority, the Kenya Investment Authority, Financial Reporting Center, Weru Technical Training College, Kerubo Yetai Technical Training Institute, and Keroka Technical Training Institute. 7, report of the Auditor General and financial statements of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Lafey, Banisa, Bura, Balambala, Ndhiwa, Kitutu Chache, Kamukunji, Nyeri Town, Kieni, Tetu, Roysambu, Othaya, Nyatike, Nyaribari, Masaba, Homa Bay Town, Rongo, Bomet Central, Suna West, Suna East, Suba North, Ganze, Bomachoge Chache, Karachuonyo, Wundanyi, North Mugirango, Kilifi South, Kisauni, Nyali, Jomvu, Rabai, Matuga, Msambweni, Kaloleni, Lungalunga, Uriri, Kitutu Masaba, Konoin, Bomachoge Borabu, and Bomet East. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Question, ordinary, proceed. What's your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, sorry, something else just came in on papers to add.
Order. You want to lay some additional papers on?
Yes. Something that just came in, Honorable Speaker, from the table office. Further to the papers laid, Honorable Speaker, allow me to lay the following on the table of the House today, Thursday, November 24th, 2022. The Defense Cooperation Agreement between the Government of the Republic of Kenya and the Government of the Republic of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the explanatory memorandum from the Ministry of Defense. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, we are now in questions. And question 015 of 2022, the Honorable Charity Chepkonyi. Charity Chepkonyi, MP for Njoro. Okay, we'll come back to it. The Honorable Member of Parliament for Mingi West, Honorable Charles Nguna. I am made to understand that he has delegated or authorized somebody else to ask on his behalf, and that would be the Honorable Makali, Dr. Makali. Dr. Makali, could you proceed and ask that question on behalf of Honorable Nguna?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you can see, I
didn't have the order paper, so thank you very much for your indulgence. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question 037 of 2022, and this is directed to the chairperson of the Teachers Service Commission. And I'm asking this question on behalf of the member for Mwingi West, Honorable Charles Guna. Roman 1, could the chairperson explain why 1,011 classroom teachers promoted to senior graduate teachers, job group M, in April 2017, and subsequently promoted to head teachers have not been elevated to the corresponding job group D1? That's the first Roman 1. Roman 2, Honorable Speaker, could the chairperson further explain if there are any plans to elevate the said 8 teachers to the required job group D1, and said by when this will be done? Roman 3, Honorable Speaker, further, could the Commission explain the reasons for existing discrepancies where senior graduate teachers are 8 teachers, yet some with the same qualification are still in job group C5 instead of D1? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
On education. Question number 38 of 2022, the Honorable Beatrice Adagala. I am made to understand that she has authorized or delegated somebody to ask on her behalf, and that person is Honorable Joshua Mwalio, MP Masinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to ask question number 038/2022 on behalf of the member of Vihiga Count, Honorable Beatrice Adagala, MP, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Roman 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of investigations into the death of Hilary Chayumbi from Budavo Village, Makuchi Sublocation, Shiru Ward, Amis, who was shot dead by unknown assailants on 30th October 2022? Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there has been a rise in insecurity and a crime in Muhudu, Amisi, Mbusali, in Sabatia, and the whole county generally, where people are regularly waylaid and their homes raided? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Fair enough. To be replied before the Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Next question, question 39 of 2022, the Honorable Amos Mwago, MP for Starehe. MP for Starehe, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to ask question number 39 of 2022, addressed to the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport. Could the Cabinet Secretary consider locating the unutilized piece of land that belongs to Kenya Railways Corporation next to Marikiti Market to the traders there on a temporary basis, pending structural expansion of new markets in the Central Business District area? Thank you.
Fair enough. To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. The next question, question number 40 of 2022, the member for Gichogo, Honorable Gichimu Gidinji. Order. Order, it has been committed. Honorable Member of Parliament for Dagoretti, is it South? We have gone to the next question. Proceed, Honorable Amos. Yes, Gichimu Gidinji. Proceed. Ask another question, number 40 of 2022.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 40 of 2022, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for the Roads
and Transport. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the contract entered into by the Kenya Railways Corporation and private companies in 2018 for the transportation of cargo through the Standard Gauge Railway, SGR, including leasing of land for the cargo to ensure SGR commercial viability for the period between 1st June 2017 and September 2019. Roman 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether the necessary procedures were followed by the Kenya Railways Corporation, including undertaking a competitive procurement process and obtaining the requisite approvals when entering into the 2 long-term contracts for the provision of railway haulage services with 2 private companies, namely Messrs. Grain Bulk Hauliers Limited and Messrs. Autosports Freight Terminal Limited. Roman 3. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide information on financial gains, if any, made by the corporation as a result of the contracts? Finally, number 4, could the Cabinet Secretary state the specific measures being taken to address any omission or commission by public officials and officers of the private entities? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask that question.
Fair enough. The question to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. The question, is this called question by private notice? Yeah? Statements. Oh yeah, order number. Okay, statements. It is notified that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44-2C, the following statements will be requested. Is the Member of Parliament there? Is he supposed to request? Or I'm supposed to read? You've changed the rules all the time. This is the Honorable Member for Kamukunji, Yusuf Hassan. Where are you? Proceed. That is your own.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to ask for a statement. I am seeking a statement concerning over the expiry of unused data bundles and widespread internet throttling practiced by internet service providers. The request for statement is pursuant to the Standing Order number 44(2)(c). I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation on the expiry of unused data bundles and the widespread practice of internet speed throttling practiced by the internet service providers in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, we're in the midst of an internet revolution whereby access to the internet has made the world a global village. There has been a steady increase in Kenyan internet users. According to the World Digital Quality of Life Index of 2022, an estimated 42% of the total Kenyan population has access to the internet. Honorable Speaker, further from data from the Communications Authority indicates that mobile data subscriptions account for the largest contributor to internet subscriptions as more Kenyans access the internet using mobile devices. As a result, Kenyans spend billions of shillings in subscribing to data packages offered by telecommunication companies and other internet service providers. Honorable Speaker, telecommunication companies and ISPs have been charging subscribers exorbitant prices for their data packages, which are subject to expiry of validity. Consumers are required to use their data bundles within a limited periods, usually a day, a week, or a month. Honorable Speaker, the high cost of data bundles, coupled with these imposed expiry periods, has largely disadvantaged millions of Kenyans who are arbitrarily deprived of their unused data bundles already paid for in full. The time limits imposed on the validity of data services has resulted in a waste of a great deal of subscribers' money. According to statistics available, in 2021, the value of unused Safaricom airtime and data stood at 5.7 billion Kenyan shillings, a huge amount. Honorable Speaker, the continued expiry of data services is further made unreasonable by poor network coverage in some parts of the country and widespread throttling of internet speeds by internet service providers, preventing consumers from fully exhausting what they have purchased. It is notable that data bundles that are affordable to consumers have shorter expiry periods, while packages which last longer tend to be more expensive with lesser data, and this has compelled subscribers to spend more money. Honorable Speaker, there is a need to protect Kenyan internet consumers who find themselves exploited by the expiry of data bundles before they can deplete it, and the deliberate reduced internet speeds. Forcing expiry dates on subscribers only benefits internet service providers and has a negative impact on efforts to promote digital adoption in the country. It is on this account that I seek a statement from the Chairman of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation on the following. 1. Could the Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy clarify the rationale behind time limitations on validity of database services used by telecommunication companies and internet service providers? 2. What immediate steps is the ministry taking to ensure internet service providers do not continue to deprive subscribers of unused data bundles already paid for under the current validity expiry model? 3. What plans does the ministry intend to put into place to cushion consumers through regulation to ensure ISPs extend bundle validity cycles and provide rollover of unused data options? 4. What specific measures is the ministry taking to enhance e-infrastructure to boost the reliability of network coverage in the country? And 5. What immediate steps is the ministry taking to ensure consumers are entitled to full enjoyment of bundles which they have paid for through curbing the widespread internet speed throttling that is used by almost all the ISPs in the country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Leader Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I just wanted, by way of comment, to thank the Honorable Member for Kamukunji for seeking that statement, because it is indeed true that many of our telcos and the service providers, internet service providers, are literally stealing from us and stealing from our people. Because the moment you buy bundles, and at the end of a month or at the end of the week, if it's a 1 week or 7 days package, you are told the bundles have expired and you have not utilized them. And they are never accountable on what happens to the money that you had paid, Honorable Speaker, is outright theft. And they must be held to account. Because even for power, it's internet service provision is a service like any other. It's like the water that is serviced to your house or power that comes to your house. And you pay for what you consume. Therefore, they cannot be charging Kenyans for what they are not consuming. And particularly, some of them, Honorable Speaker, are notorious. You know, those who have been vending cash services and money lending services at very exorbitant rates. Honorable Speaker, you must ask yourself, what is it that they did under this regime that they were able to cut the charges we are charging Kenyans by close to 50% on Fuliza? It is the same business, Honorable Speaker. Some of these internet service providers are engaged in business of exploiting Kenyans, and I really want to ask the Committee on ICT, under the chairmanship of the Honorable KJ, to really look into all those issues raised by the member for Kamukunji, because they are matters that are of concern. And the people they punish most, Honorable Speaker, it's not me and you who can afford bundles. It is millions of young Kenyans who are using these bundles to explore the internet and even work online, Honorable Speaker. And we are punishing them, yet they have no jobs, and the little jobs they can do over the internet, they are now being punished by these internet service providers. And I therefore support this statement, and I want to ask the chair of this committee to ensure that this statement is expedited with in the shortest time possible. If you can even be able to engage with them, the Honorable KJ and your committee, and give us a report before we go on recess next week, it will be the most ideal thing. So that even as we break for Christmas, Honorable Speaker, we can be sure nobody will steal our bundles. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Inapkoi Chepkonga, you have a business in this business in the sense that you are a telecommunication man.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, just ignore what Honorable Ngeno is saying here. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member of Kamukunji for bringing a very timeless petition. It's a very important petition, Mr. Speaker. You can imagine, I take my money, I put it in a bank, and it has an expiry date. That's exactly what these Safaricom and Airtel have done, Mr. Speaker. You have put your money, hoping that you are going to use it, and you have not used it. And somebody puts a time limit within which you must use that money. And if you don't use it, it becomes theirs. That, Mr. Speaker, is robbery without violence. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable KJ, as the leader of the majority, has said, he has a very important task of bringing the minister together with the regulator who took over from me. You know, it looks like he's not sensitive as I was, Mr. Speaker. So when such matters are raised, don't wait until you are dragged into this house. Resolve them fairly quickly, so that if money has not been used and it is in your account, it is refunded to you. You don't make it part of your profit, Mr. Speaker. What service have you provided? You have just kept my money, Mr. Speaker, and you have in fact invested it, used it and made a profit. In fact, you should be thanking me and giving me some more bonker points, Mr. Speaker. So it is important that the Minister of ICT, Mr. Owalo, together with the former CEO of IBC, should be brought to this house, Mr. Speaker, fairly quickly by the Honorable KJ, Mr. Speaker. And if he lacks powers, Mr. Speaker, let him invoke Article 125 very quickly, Mr. Speaker, and they appear in this house so that they don't mess up with hustlers. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order, the MP for Nyando? Did I hear you say IBC? Okay. Okay. And the current, of course, yes. Yeah. Honorable Nyando, you are on a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my point of order, it's very unfortunate the Speaker reads Navaholo as Nyando. My point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Navaholo, proceed. You are on a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Was in concerning the Honorable Member, Chepkonga. Is he not, Honorable Speaker, to reprimand his predecessor that he is not active without disclosing to the House, Honorable Speaker, what portion of the bundles that were not charged during this time?
Order, Honorable. The Honorable MP for Moyale, Professor Guyo Jaldesa. Proceed, Professor Jaldesa. Or you have a problem with technology? Yeah, you can go to the next one.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The issue of bundles is a very emotive issue because people consume money without knowing. And that should be handled as quickly as possible as the questionnaire raised. Then the issue of telecoms, internet and the Wi-Fi, the telecommunication system in the country must be spread across the country so that everybody is able to be reached according to their desires. Thank you, sir.
Fair enough. MP for Saku, retired Colonel Dido Raso. wherever you are.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Yusuf for raising that. I think today 70% of the population of this country are youth, most of them in colleges and universities. This is what they use on day-to-day for their studies, for their communication, and to also work online around the world. But if the service providers are going to take advantage, and yet most of these youngsters depend on many of us, including their parents, who make a living by doing hustling, then I think the service providers are not doing justice for the large majority of the population of this country. I call upon KJ, because he is an avid user of technology, that these things must be brought to an end. We must check them, and they must actually rebate to most of the young people that if you spend 10 shillings, they should give you a rebate of 5, so that they are paying back to Kenyans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mayaka, nominated MP, Irene.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also support the issue on mobile internet and the use of it. And being a young person myself, I know that the internet is where we spend most of our time when you want to do research, when you want to communicate with people, and especially for the young people, as has been previously said, a lot of the research work that they need to do even at work, and even for their own social use, they really need to use this particular service. So I think this is something that should be dealt with in a very urgent matter. And I do agree, and the good thing, my chair is here, the Honorable KJ, who is also a technology savvy person, that this particular matter should be taken up by our committee so that we can interrogate it further and make sure that we give a solution that is actually amicable to everyone. And also, Honorable Speaker, it's not actually only the young people who use the internet, even our parents, they are now technology savvy and they do use network bundles. And as has been said, the telecom providers are taking advantage of this because they know that the increment of use of this particular service has gone up in our country. So yes, I agree that this needs to be interrogated and urgently so. I thank you.
The Honorable Nyamai, MP for Kitui South.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first of all, I would like to thank the member for Kamukunji, Honorable Yusuf, for raising this matter. Honorable Speaker, our constituents are being misused by the mobile companies. I would like to give you an example of my 3 locations. One location called Mudha, another one called Kasala and Kanziko. These 3 locations can have no network for about 7 days a week. And when someone has purchased bundles and 7 days expire, then it is important that the mobile companies tell us where have they been taking these bundles. Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask the Honorable KJ to request a refund for the people of Kitui South and the others in the 290 constituencies that have lost money through this scam. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The MP for Mogotio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to support Honorable Member of Parliament for Kamukunji, because as a young person, Mr. Speaker, many young people of my age and those younger than me have been using these internet bundles without there's no CSR from this company to the young people. They invest their time using these bundles. The bundle expires. We don't know what is hitting these bundles at night, Mr. Speaker. You load bundles in your phone. When you wake up tomorrow in the morning, you are told to load another one. I don't know what is hitting them at night, Mr. Speaker. And we have to look into these technos on how they use these bundles at night, Mr. Speaker. And now they intend to give back to those people who are investing in these bundles. What are they doing for CSR to the young people who are doing this? Do they have any plan of any training to these young people so that they can use this internet to their advantage to generate income, so that they can use this internet as a way of education? We must look into these companies, Mr. Speaker, because they are enriching themselves using these young people who are active, because the current situation in this country, Mr. Speaker, is that there is less jobs and many young people find time with their phones. Then these techno companies take advantage and siphon the money out of their phones through bundles, Mr. Speaker. We must look into it, Mr. Speaker. Honorable KJ should work on it as a chair and deal with them so that they can lower the cost of internet, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
The MP for Rangwe, Dr. Lillian Gogo. Is she here in the house? Okay. The MP for Igembe Central. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Honorable Hassan, the MP for Kamukunji, for bringing this motion. I believe whatever you buy, you own. And when one buys the battles, you own those battles. And the battles are yours, and you shouldn't be given a chance to use them when you need to use them. So these companies are really defrauding the users, and they should be made to understand that what you buy is yours, and they should give the users an opportunity to use the battles when they are at the area of use. In most rural areas, there are no network connections, and if you buy battles and you are in town, when you go home, you will never use them. So if you hang around at home for maybe a week or 2 weeks, your battles expires and you lose your money. So I think these companies, the mobile providers and the airtime providers, should be made to understand that they should give us time to use our bundles until they are over. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The MP for Wajir South.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I would like to thank the Honorable Member for Kamukunji for raising this very important issue, the issue of the telecommunication companies stealing from their customers has given rise to some other issues and characters we've seen and observed in some of my constituents. Whenever they call me on WhatsApp, they immediately switch it off because they don't want to lose their data. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to get back to them because they don't switch it on again. So this is a very important matter to almost every Kenyan. But there's also the issue of the infrastructure for telecommunication. In my constituency, vast areas do not have network. And in places where the masts are and the network is available, it's at 2G. And most of the cost of the data.
What's your point of order, the Honorable Majority Leader?
Honorable Speaker, I was just concerned, Honorable Speaker, because the Honorable Member said that when his constituents are calling him on WhatsApp. And I was just wondering, Honorable Speaker, since freedom came, we are no longer using WhatsApp to call unless there is a section of this country that the public feels that there is no freedom, they still have to call on WhatsApp. And I want to encourage the Honorable Member. I know he is from the a divide that may not believe that freedom is here. Please feel free to call on open line. Freedom is here.
Well, we will believe when we see that freedom. And I am saying my constituents are calling me on WhatsApp because it's cheaper for them, because I come from a place. If your people can afford to And we have nothing to hide, actually, because they're talking about their problems to me. And I want to get back to them. And it's that phenomenon that was raised by Honorable Yusuf Hassan of telecommunication companies stealing the data from the people that is causing that. I was talking about the availability of telephone network in my constituency, which is few and far between, and in places where the communication masts are, the network is at 2G, which is a very, very frustrating thing for my constituents. And I would like to appeal to the committee.
Happened to your technology? Can the clerks at the table help him? Proceed, Honorable Wanyonyi. It was switched on for you, you switched it
That
off.
was a sabotage, I think, off and on. The Speaker, I quite want to agree with the Honorable Yusuf Haji for whatever he has come up with, because it's important for us to have...
Order, it's Yusuf Hassan.
Haji, sorry. He's a colleague. He's a former colleague. We have worked with him. Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that the committee, actually, because we are going the wrong recess, that the committee calls those who are concerned to be able to sort out this problem before we go, because I'm sure that's when you are going to have communication. And in the way it's been happening, you know, my children asking me for money every day. You give them the money and they say they don't have the whatever. So I want to ask that the committee works and goes to these particular fellows who are, particularly those who are dealing with this, to be able to have this problem sorted out once and for all. I think that's the concern of the most members of Parliament, and they are quite rightly so. Thank you so much, and I support.
The Honorable Waitan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a timely question by the Honorable Member for Kamkunji, the Honorable Yusuf Hassan. I thank him very much, because this is an issue that is now affecting our youth. They spend a lot of money unknowingly, and I think we need to push these subscribers and the service providers to make sure they adhere to the rules and regulations of the country. I urge my friend KJ to very quickly move very fast to summon people concerned so that they can give us explanation on why they have expiry dates for our data. You know, KJ himself is a youth, so he knows, he's always on it. He knows the problem that is affecting our youth. I'm happy that KJ is the one leading this committee. And we need to assist now our youth so that they can benefit and use the data appropriately without, thinking about the expiry date. These days, since Corona, most of our students are now using, this data for even their studies in the universities, in the colleges, even in secondary schools. People go for Zoom, to study. Even while you are here now, because of technology, you study, even in the foreign countries, without any problem. So this data is used greatly and so much by Kenyans.
Honorable
So
Member,
we expect, we expect in this committee to move very fast and bring back the report before we go for recess. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I'll give 2 more people, or 3 at most, and I want to be gender sensitive. The lady up there, you keep on raising your hand, I don't see your name. She's called who? Proceed, Madam Chelule. Proceed. Please give her the...
Given the mic here.
Oh my God.
I have the mic here. I have the mic.
Madam Chelule, you are wasting very valuable time. Please give her the mic. Okay, there you go. And be very brief, because we have very heavy business left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving
Just a minute, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to also add my voice on the statement that has been brought to the floor of this House by Honorable for Kamugunji. I really want to appreciate him because this statement has come to this House at the right time. I can hear members speaking about youth. In fact, all of us, we are victims. All of us, all Kenyans, are victims of bad services from the Safaricom. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can hear people talking about bundles alone. I want to speak about Okoa Jahazi, where when you request, in Okoa Jahazi, when you request 500, they give you a feedback of 450, meaning they have deducted their interest even before you start using the funds. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to request the chairperson, KJ, that when it comes to this time, Mr. KJ, please investigate each and every service of Safaricom that Safaricom is offering to Kenyans. And let this be our present, our Christmas present, Mr. KJ. Thank you.
The MP for Lagdera, and please take no more than a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this statement. Let me thank Honorable Yusuf for bringing this matter to the House. Just recently, Mr. Speaker, I read a story on Safaricom that also they want to have the bunker points, the loyalty bunker point, to have an expiry date. And they're saying that 4.5 billion shillings worth of bunker points lying in the hearts of Kenyans. Why do you want to exploit Kenyans? This telecom has been making astronomical, very big, very huge profit out of Kenyans. And yet, they cannot allow Kenyans to have 4.5 shillings of, I think, a billion shillings of bunker points in the hands. So I think also the committee should look into that. They should ask Safaricom why they want to have expiry date for bunker points. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP for Sotik, 1 minute, no more than a minute. Followed by Madam Wako of Moyale, Marsabit. Proceed, Honorable. Please give him, it's behind you, behind you.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like, first of all, to thank Honorable Yusuf, who is ever creative in this House, for bringing this very timely statement. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, for your information, there is a serious voting to be done on a motion that you passed yesterday on CDF, and if you keep on walking out and you don't have a quorum, realize that we might not be able to do that now. So you better stay in the House for us to be able to be assured of on the quorum. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to suggest to this House, and especially to the chairman, our able Mheshimiwa Kiarie, that we bring this issue to the committee by next week, so that we can benefit during our holidays. Okay. We want them to give us the best again in this Christmas, so that we can be able to use these bundles very effectively. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Gogo, you've been called before. I don't know where you are, but you better put in no more than a minute. Order, next to you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think there is a problem with the IT system today. I want to also rise to support this. There is a tendency, I think there is a very big thirst to reap millions and millions of shillings from Kenya. Somebody wakes up, Safaricom wakes up, and says that by January all the bonga points people have accumulated over the years without claiming are going to disappear. Who is bewitching Kenyans, Honorable Speaker? There is a problem with this country that needs to be fixed and it needs to be addressed, and especially in the matters that affects the poor people. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Bukose is the last one, Dr. Bukose, and take no more than a minute. Oh my God, Wako, you are okay. Wako first. I'd already given the floor to Wako. After proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order. I had given it to Wako before. I'm sorry, I got mixed up.
But
so
now
wait.
that I have, I can say then.
Proceed.
Wako.
Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know I come from where there is MTN also in the border of Kenya and Uganda. So I don't know whether I need Honorable KJ to whether we can also have access to the MTN Wi-Fi, data usage from the other side in connection with Safaricom, because my people are also suffering from there. And I was telling Honorable Wanyonyi that we as Endebess will soon be moving to Mount Elgon County and leave you in Trans Nzoia. So thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Wako, half a minute, and then KJ 2 minutes because you're the chair of the committee. Honorable Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I stand to add my voice to this very important and relevant statement by Honorable Yusuf, as I also congratulate him. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that most of our young people are using this, and some people, even the grown-ups, are doing even their studies online. And we keep buying bundles, which at the end of the day is stolen from us. And it is my prayer that Honorable KJ will take this seriously so that they take care of Kenyans, and also put into consideration the Kenyans who are using their bundles on daily basis. They are not even learned. They don't even understand what is happening. So Mr. Honorable KJ, together with the team, take care of us, and especially as we face this festive season. Thank you.
Honorable Member of Parliament for the Great South, KJ is not an official name. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to join everyone who is congratulating.
Take no more than 2 minutes.
Yes, I congratulate the Honorable Yusuf because, yes, Mr. Speaker, we do understand that Article 95 does mandate this House to deliberate on and resolve all issues concerning Kenyans. And this is a critical issue concerning Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. The one thing that I think was good, Mr. Speaker, is you allowing members to comment on this statement, because you've started now shaping up the discussion that we will be having in the committee. One, Mr. Speaker, these telcos will have to define whether utilities like whether bonga points or airtime or data can be defined as utility. Because, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Power cannot give a utility.
Majority Leader, we're running out of time for the...
Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker, I was just shaping the issues that have been shaped here by members, but I'll jump very quickly, Mr. Speaker, and observe that we as a committee will
What's your point of order, Honorable Ichunga? What's your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to guide the chair that since this statement is going to his committee, he should not be doing what he is doing. He should just tell the House when he will deal with the matter, because he's now preempting what the committee will be doing.
Order. The idea is because this matter is very close to the hearts of Kenyans, the chair has the responsibility to gauge the mood.
Exactly.
And this is basically ventilation. Order, honorable members. Further ventilation enriches the whole concept of dealing with this thing. Proceed, but take just 1 more minute.
Thank you for protecting me, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. And I would have wished that the majority leader would have waited for me to complete that statement. Because the committee goes into it, we shall be as neutral as we can be as we are listening to these matters. But it is well noted by this committee, Mr. Speaker, that this is a critical issue of national concern. It is in fact a matter of life and death, because today as we speak, airtime is what people depend on when you're calling an ambulance, when you're calling an Uber for critical services. So, Mr. Speaker, the point and the build I wanted to make here is that it has been raised as a statement but we might go as a committee and find out that this matter might even grow to an issue that will require an inquiry, Mr. Speaker, where we shall be inquiring as to why telcos are so emboldened to be doing the things they are doing. It might even be speaking to the matter of dominance, Mr. Speaker, of going against the competition authorities, regulations and provisions on what one becomes, or at what point one becomes a dominant player.
Fair enough.
Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate this opportunity. I do note also that it goes beyond just our airtime. It also goes into bonga points, which are royalty points, Mr. Speaker. Royalty that you have earned. Loyalty cannot be taxed. It cannot even be deducted on. So, Mr. Speaker, we shall expedite this at the committee level, and we shall even be communicating to the leader of majority and your office, Mr. Speaker, so that if it needs for the committee to sit even during recess, so that we are able to resolve this, Mr. Speaker, we shall be able to resolve it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Madam Chepkonyi, please ask your question very fast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this chance to ask my question. Number 015-2022. Roman number 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a brief on the financial status of universities in this country, and in particular, Egerton University? Now, Roman 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the specific measures that the government is taking to address the financial crisis facing many public universities and other institutions of higher learning? Roman number 3, Mr. Speaker, says, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Egerton University management continues to delay the payment of salaries to their staff, and the state what arrangements are in the place to ensure that the staff are paid their salaries without further delay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have a lot of challenges facing many institutions, including Egerton University, Moi University, and very many higher learning institutions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Fair enough. To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education. The Honorable Chair of Education, you have a response to a statement that was sought on CDC. Could you be very...
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that I'm responding to a statement that was sought by Honorable Member for, I think I'm Kunji, Mbakasi, yes. And the statement sought to know the following: that was the response from the ministry on the request that the examination be held on different dates or times. And 2, action that the ministry is taking to make specific arrangements to cater for schools, especially urban areas that have candidates under both curriculums, that is, have higher number of candidates. And 3, action the ministry is undertaking to rectify situations where schools cannot meet the Kenya National Examination recommendation ratio of 20:1. Honorable Speaker, the statement is as follows: that in response to the issue of examination be held on different times, the Cabinet Secretary said the following: that the Ministry of Education issued a circular dated 3rd December 2020 and referred, and the reference is indicated here, especially on KCSE, KEPS, Kenya Primary Schools examinations, and revised the term dates, and indicated the revised term dates as follows: that in this regard, NEC revised the schedule of activities to adhere to the new term dates set by the Ministry of Education. The timetables for the 2022 Kenya KPSEA, KLEA, and KCPE examinations were shared with the relevant educational stakeholders in April 2022. All the activities in the Preparations for the conduct of examinations have been guided by the dates set in the examination timetables, that is the NEC, and has given a reference date. That has completed the process of developing, printing, packing, centering of the 2022 KPSEA, KLEA, and KCPE examinations. The packing, centering of the examination materials was completed and customized to include the dates in the approved timetables. 3, the schools, or 4, the schools were prepared. The schools have prepared the 2022 candidates using the term dates, and the learners are ready for the examinations as per the timetable. Changing the timetable dates and times at this late stage will therefore have major ramification. 5, the administration of the 2022 examinations is scheduled to start with the small papers, that is the small number of candidates, on 21st November, which was about 3 days ago, and the large papers, those are candidates with large numbers of candidates, 2nd December 2022, immediately at the end of the KPSEA and KCPE examinations. 6, the administration of KCSE examinations, large papers, will require the engagement of NEC key personnel. Thus, it is very difficult for NEC to have any other major activity running within the period of administration of the large papers for KCSE examinations in case the scheduling of any examination. That is the first part. The second part is, what are the arrangements to cater for schools that have higher number of candidates? And the minister said this: NEC received concerns from the stakeholders on the concurrent administration of KCPE, KPSEA examinations, with the main concern being the potential shortage of classrooms for schools and large number of candidates. 2, NEC convened a stakeholder consultative meetings with various stakeholders, including sub-county directors of education in Nairobi region on the 28th October 2022 on the specific issues including involving centers with large candidates in Nairobi region. 3, NEC also held meetings with TSC, regional directors of education, county directors of education, KEPSHA, KESHA, and KEPSA. The consultative meetings ironed out the major concerns on the simultaneous administration of the 2 examinations, and the interventions agreed upon were as follows. 1, all centers with large candidates were to be identified, and alternative centers found to host the additional candidates in liaison with the sub-county directors of education. 2, where possible, some candidates would be arranged into the rooms and halls in the neighboring schools. 3, large centers were allowed to engage additional supervisors, invigilators, and security officers. 4, additional clerks have been engaged to assist in the distribution of materials at the distribution points to distribute KCP and KPSEA. The last question, action taken where schools cannot meet the candidates to supervise a ratio. Action taken where schools cannot meet the candidate ratio of 20:1 for a center. The answer is, the response is as follows. NEC policy requires that the recommended ratio of candidates to invigilators is 20:1, while 200:1 for supervisors, with at least 1 supervisor in every center to ensure the NEC KNEC engaged with the TSC sub-county directors on 4th October 2022, and it was agreed as follows. That 1, all supervisors involved in the administration of examinations would be teachers employed by TSC. 2, invigilators identified must be registered by TSC, and there would be close monitoring of examination centers in schools where teachers are employed. 3, TSC secondary school teachers would be involved in the supervision and invigilation of KCPE, KPSEA. So those are the response, Honorable Speaker, on the issues raised.
Fair enough.
And I submit that it is the CS.
Fair enough. Order,
he
Honorable.
brought this quite
Yes.
late. I think
You
next
better
time
circulate
it
it,
should be on
yes.
time. Yes.
Circulate it for the members of parliament to have ample time to go through it and internalize it. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, publishing of the rules and regulations for private land use and management in regard to the minimum and maximum land holdings in Kenya. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I put the question that aware that Article 68C, Roman 1 of the Constitution of Kenya provides for minimum and maximum land holding acreages in respect to private land, deeply concerned that with high population growth and the demand for land have resulted in excessive fragmentation of land into uneconomic units, noting that at the same time a number of people own large tracts of land which are not utilized optimally, noting further that cognizant of the fact that the Constitution in Article 60, Sub-Article 1 sets out the principles of land policy, which among other things requires that land in Kenya shall be held, used and managed in a manner that is equitable, efficient, productive and sustainable. This House therefore resolves that the government enforces compliance of Article 68, Sub-Article C, Roman 1 of the Constitution, Section 159 of the Land Act of 2012 and the National Land Policy. National Land Policy Sessional Paper number 3 of 2009 on maximum and minimum land holdings in Kenya through publishing the rules and regulations for private land use and management in regard to the minimum and maximum land holdings in Kenya. As many of the opinions say aye. As many of contrary opinions say aye. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, establishment of a parliamentary joint ad hoc committee on a legislative proposal to amend the constitution to entrench certain specialized funds. Question to be put.
Order. Honorable members, debate was concluded on this, and now I'm going to put the question. That acknowledging that Article 256 of the Constitution provides for the process of amending the Constitution by parliamentary initiative, further acknowledging that Standing Order 114.7a of the National Assembly Standing Orders provides for the process of introducing legislative proposals in respect of propositions amending the Constitution, noting the general debate in the House on the legislative proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench the National Government Constituencies Fund, Constituency Development Fund, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, the Senate Oversight Fund, and the Economic Stimulus and Empowerment Fund in the Constitution. Cognizant of the comments and views of honorable members during general debate on the legislative legislative proposals, recognizing the need for a bicameral approach on the proposal prior to publication of the relevant bill, acknowledging that the subject matter of the legislative proposal cuts across the mandate of more than one committee of the House. Now, therefore, in furtherance to the provision of Article 256 of the Constitution, amendment by parliamentary initiative, this House resolves: 1, to establish a joint parliamentary ad hoc committee on a proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds comprising 11 members from each of the Houses of Parliament. 2A, facilitate collation of the views from the comments by members of Parliament during the general debate on the proposal and inviting members with similar or related proposals to make submissions before the committee. B, invite, engage with and consider submissions from stakeholders and relevant constitutional and statutory bodies with a law reform mandate, including the Attorney General and the commissions and independent offices established under Chapter 15 of the Constitution. C, in consultation with the sponsors, attempt to develop and recommend a harmonized version of the proposal arising from the submissions received. And D, to report to the Houses of Parliament within 90 days to enable the speakers to make a decision and give direction on whether or not the legislative proposal is to be published into a bill or not to be proceeded with. 2, that the officers of the clerks of Houses of Parliament provide secretariat services to the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee in accordance with the standing orders. 3, the following members represent the National Assembly in the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. Roman 1, the Honorable Samuel Kiprono Chepkonga, MP, co-chairperson. Roman 2, the Honorable Rebecca Tonkei, MP. Roman 3, the Honorable Ekomas Mwengi Mutuse, MP. Roman 4, the Honorable Wakili Edward Muriu, MP. Roman 5, the Honorable Catherine Nanjala Wambrianga, MP. Roman 6, the Honorable Timothy Kipchumba Toroitich, MP. Roman 7, the Honorable John Mbadi, EGH, MP. Roman 8, the Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, MP. Roman 9, the Honorable Yusuf Hassan, MP. Roman 10, the Honorable Zamzam Mohammed, MP. Roman 11, the Honorable Patrick Beatrice Elachi, MP. Roman 12, the Honorable Robert Gichimu Girinji, MP, co-opted. And the Roman 13, the Honorable Stephen Mule, MP, co-opted. 4, to request the Senate to also appoint a similar number of members to represent the Senate in the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Yeah, proceed, Honorable. Who is on point of order? Leader of majority, proceed. Are you on a point of order, Leader of majority?
No, Honorable Speaker.
Somebody is on a point of order.
I was going back to the statements.
Just to the, what's the point of order? The Honorable Omboko, MP for Emuhaya. Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, whereas it's true and we have been already told, it's very important that we align our standing order so that the Cabinet Secretaries come to the floor of Parliament. The statement that has just been read by the Chair of Education, in that statement would have had a chance to give the Honorable CS supplementary questions. For instance, he has talked a lot about how exams are going to be done in the field. But, Chair, as you interact with the CS, please, could you also find out that 4 or 5 things are not correct in that sector? That one, teachers have been...
Honorable Mboko, we have gone to the next order. With all due respect to my fellow panelists, you have the Parliament here. You can change, you amend your standing orders to make it easier for the CSS to come here and perform the duties that you want them to perform. I mean, somebody like him who was in the 10th Parliament, when the ministers were from Parliament, this is a totally different thing, and I don't think this one is working very well for us. There are many things in the Constitution that worked very well. This particular one, in which committee chairs are going to become spokesmen for ministries, has not worked for this country. It's up to you now as members of Parliament, and I'm debating this because I'm also a member of Parliament, to then rise up to the occasion. Honorable Kimani Chungwa, proceed with what you had to do, but it's your own docket as the majority leader to initiate some of these things with a lot of diligence, so that you can serve Kenyans better.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And indeed, the House Procedures Committee is appraised of that matter so that we review our standing orders to ensure that these cabinet secretaries can come and answer to the people of Kenya who are represented by these members. Honorable Speaker, allow me, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2a, to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 22nd November 2022, to prioritize the business for consideration during the week. Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday, the House is expected to resume debate on session of paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy, should it not be concluded today. We shall also prioritize approval of nominees to the remaining constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, as the information is submitted from the National Government CDF Board and onward to our NGCDF committee. Honorable Speaker, members will note that presently there isn't much business before the House. Additionally, we are approaching the final week before the House proceeds on the long Christmas recess. I therefore want to urge committee chairpersons to be present and to ensure that there is smooth transaction of House business. I further request committees with any reports that were handed over to them from the last Parliament to expedite their consideration and tabling in the House for debate. I also request any delegations that have traveled out of the country on official duty to table their reports to enable the House to benefit from their interactions with colleagues from across the globe. Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee shall reconvene on Tuesday, 29 November 2022 to schedule business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Honorable Wako, you had a procedural motion? Huh?
Thank you.
Order. Take your seat. It's supposed to be a bench, but it's a seat now. Ordinarily, the tradition was that it was a bench. Only the Speaker had a seat. But now things have changed since the 10th Parliament.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of associational paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy.
Proceed, Honorable Wako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand to move this motion on limitation of debate on specified sessional paper, that notwithstanding the resolution of the House made on Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, afternoon sitting, relating to the limitation of debate on sessional papers, this House orders that debate on sessional paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy be limited as follows: a maximum of 5.5 hours with not more than 10 minutes for any member speaking, except the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the departmental committee on transport and infrastructure, who shall each have 20 minutes, and that 10 minutes before expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the departmental committees in that order. Mr. Speaker, you know very well that this is a very important matter for the honorable members to debate on, because we know that Kenyans have a lot of special interest in motor vehicles and they need to debate and debate well. So the additional time will help the members, the honorable members, to ventilate more on this and see how they can move this forward. I therefore request Honorable Eve Obara, Kabondo, Kasipul constituency to second. Thank you.
Proceed, the Honorable Eve. You have gone, you have a problem with the, it's behind you, MP for Kasipul Kabon.
Okay,
that's okay.
Okay,
That's
thank
okay.
you very much, Mr. Speaker. Fully aware of the importance of this policy that seeks to create an enabling environment for the automotive sector to realize its full potential and position as a major player in the industry, I second. Thank you.
Fair enough. I'll propose the question. I now propose the question that notwithstanding the resolution of the House made on Wednesday, October 12, 2022, afternoon sitting relating to the limitation of debate on sessional papers, this House orders that debate on sessional paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy be limited as follows: a maximum of 5.5 hours with not more than 10 minutes for any member speaking except the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the departmental committee on transport and infrastructure, who shall each have 20 minutes, and that 10 minutes before expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the departmental committee in that order. I put the question. I now put the question that notwithstanding this resolution of the House made on Wednesday, October 12, 2022, afternoon sitting, relating to the limitation of debate on sessional papers, this House orders that debate on sessional paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy be limited as follows. A maximum of 5.5 hours with not more than 10 minutes for any member speaking except the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure, who shall each have 20 minutes. And that 10 minutes before expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. And further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the minority party and the chairperson of the Departmental Committee in that order. As many as what opinion say aye? As many as contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Proceed. Now, Abraham Kirwa Mosop. Julius Ruto Keses.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. The motion before us is an ideal motion for this honorable House to discuss. As the nation Kenya, at the state where we are now, we seek to be an industrious country. We seek to create jobs for our youth. We seek to transform our economic activities of this nation. We seek to be self-sustained in terms of our livelihoods. And I want to say that this policy of automotive is a policy that we need to look at keenly and to support whatsoever energy we need to put in place. Mr. Speaker, we are now aware that under sector of education, the country has shifted to support the technical education for our youth. And this technical education, Mr. Speaker, equips our youth with technical skills. And the focus or the objective of this shift in our education sector is to ensure that we build our youth enough to be able to address the challenges of lack of employment, so that those who may not be successful to be employed by the formal sector can be able to be absorbed by the informal sector. And when we say informal sector, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that we give our youth an opportunity to utilize the technical knowledge they have, and of course to build up their area where they are gifted in their lives. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion, that as a country we need to look at policies in place to be able to allow our country not to keep importing every now and then. As you look at, all our roads are filled with imported second-hand motor vehicles. Yes, those are what we can afford by now. But if you look at the cost effect in it and the resultant net impact that is going to cause on us, is going to reduce us to majorly depend on importation, plus the parts that we need to be able to service these particular motor vehicles. Of course, majorly these are motor vehicles, but the day we allow our own industry, we assemble locally here, availability of spare parts will be available. The cost of managing will come down, and you realize that it will speed up our development. It will speed up our economic growth. So I stand to support this motion, that this is the right direction we need to go, but then we need to go beyond this. That is not only going to remain to be a motion to be discussed here, but we want to see the sectors absorbing and adjusting to go this direction, so that we retain our employment within our country, we retain our revenue within our country, we retain our income within our households within our country, and in the long run, we achieve the best livelihood we desire. Our families can be able to afford. We will absorb our youth. We will create talents within our country. We will create innovation within our country. And in the long run, Mr. Speaker, sir, Kenya can come to a point where we are also going to export the same technology outside to the other third world countries, like so the western side of African countries who have been reliably depending on Kenya. But unlike now, Kenya is shifting to be much of a borrower or of an importer than an exporter before. And that's, it even explains the current challenges we are going through in terms of the buying price, in terms of the difficulty in managing our cost of living. So, Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker, sorry, because the chair has changed, I stand to support this motion and say that this is the direction we need to go. We must hold on this one as a country, Kenya, and believe in ourselves that one day we shall be an industrious country, like Japan, like Germany, or like the other countries that they manufacture a motor vehicle. Thank you so much for the opportunity that I've been accorded, and I want to say I am here as a leader to support this in supporting of our youth, in creating our employment, in creating jobs within Kenya, and in growing our economy. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Very well, member for Keses. The Honorable Ngoyo, member for Kajiado North. Member for Kajiado North.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I wish to give my contribution, Madam Speaker, and say that this session of paper, Madam Speaker, is very imperative to the growth of our country's economy and very, very considerate to the environment. Madam Speaker, you realize that we have serious universities like JKUAT that have, Madam Speaker, that are investing heavily on what they call automotive engineering. Madam Speaker, the world over, why there is a serious transformation from fuel cars to diesel cars is because of this issue of emissions, which we need to deal with. If we allow our country to keep importing cars, we regulate 8 years, 7 years. Madam Speaker, is because there is a problem we are not addressing. The issue is not the number of years. What we should have is technology, to invest in technology such that we have less or non-fuel emission cars. Madam Speaker, you realize that this country has had attempts of making local cars, but there has been no push from the government and even from stakeholders to encourage individuals who might be interested in this particular sector. Madam Speaker, I have traveled with cars in this country using gases, and there is a company that installs gas to be used in cars. Most of these Uber are using gas. But Madam Speaker, there are no deliberate attempts to make sure that we are moving from the issue of cars that are with more emissions so that we are able to grow, Madam Speaker, one, as a country, to have cars that have less emissions. Number two, Madam Speaker, you realize this issue of regulations every year. Let us bring cars this type, Madam Speaker. Let us stop diesel, let us go to this type. That will not be the solution. I therefore wish to say that, Madam Speaker, as a country, we need to invest in the technology of this country. If the university education that we are treating our children to in universities is anything to be proud about, then we should encourage companies and individuals that have interest in this automotive sector to come up with cars. One, they can even, Madam Speaker, be zero rated. We can also reduce the taxes of people buying local cars, Madam Speaker. It will be cheaper for those who are buying. It will be safer. Madam Speaker, we must protect our ozone layer. Otherwise, in the near future, the sun will keep burning hot. And remember, we do not have another layer to protect apart from the ozone layer. Environment-friendly cars is the way to go by. Madam Speaker, we have a lot of geothermal power in Naivasha. There are prospects of even more power in Magadi, parts of Turkana. Once we begin to invest, and if we have our own electricity, electric cars, Madam Speaker, have worked in very many countries, very manageable. Madam Speaker, you know, even the hybrid system of a few cars that are here works, you combine. But ultimately, going forward, what you need is to have cars that are electric or, Madam Speaker, that can use gas. The power prospects in Naivasha, Madam Speaker, they are estimated that they can run this country with proper management. I wish to ask this House that as we approve this sessional paper, we need to look at this issue of this policy with a deeper perspective. Because if we're investing money in our universities, let us also get returns by making sure that, Madam Speaker, we have people who sit down to think of how Kenya can have local cars with less emission or no emissions, and it is possible. Madam Speaker, where our president currently is, South Korea, they are doing this. This is a country at independence was at the same level with Kenya. They have implemented plans that belonged to Kenya, but we did not implement. Madam Speaker, we need to have, going forward, proper laid down plans and people who can implement these plans. This government has a serious responsibility to make sure that at the end of these 5 years, we have reduced or we have increased the number of local prospects of people who can be able to produce local cars, Madam Speaker, with serious exemptions from government and help and facilitation from our national government. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I wish to support and say that going forward, we need this policy so that we are able to move our country forward, protecting our environment and caring that the future will be better than what it is today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Julius Ole Sunkuli, member for Kilgoris. The Honorable Sunkuli seems to have withdrawn from the chamber. The Honorable Moses Kirima, member for Central Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important topic on the session paper before us. My contribution, Madam Chair, is that seriously, the country needs to invest on automotive engineering, and taking into account that if you look at what is draining these countries, dollars or money, it is the importation of cars which we get from outside. It's one of the most expensive things because there is no car which you can import from outside and buy it at any cost which is less than millions and millions of shillings. We need to take into consideration as of what was left some times back when the late president of this country, President Daniel Arap Moi, came with an idea of Nyayo 1, Nyayo 2, and he came with an idea of making cars in this country. It was a very novel idea, and that idea was killed. It was way back when we were in university in the year 1980s, and that idea was, Madam Speaker, killed by those people who didn't want this country from stopping of importing cars from outside. When it comes to that idea of innovation, one must be aware that it's going to face a very competitive world where the Western countries and the Eastern countries which produce automobiles are going to make sure that we don't get that technology which is necessary to have that kind of production. Madam Speaker, if we produce our own cars, and with the system of education which we have today, which was unable to support that idea of producing automobiles, but now we have CBC. I think this was the kind of system of education which we are establishing in Kenya now, the CBC, should be this idea of production of automobiles and many others which can support this country economically should be one of the topics to be introduced, at least to assist this country to come up with anything which can earn foreign currency, of which can assist this country to come out of the economic mess which we are in. Having the automobile being produced here in Kenya in the future, taking into account that we are within the equator, we can have the solar automobiles, taking into account that what is leading the country's economy now is fuel, fossil fuel, which is becoming very expensive. It's making us to be on our knees economically because we cannot support ourselves for all the little we are getting. We are using it to import the fuel from outside. And this fuel, mainly it's used by cars which we import from outside. What about if we have automobile being produced here in Kenya, and since we are within the equator, we are going to have, we have automobile or production which can use solar energy, for we have, even now as we talk, we have solar energy automobiles on our roads. And if we can produce it within ourselves and have this solar energy being used as fuel, means of fuel, then we are going to succeed in one way or the other, and we are going to save this country a lot of what we call foreign currency, which can support us in other economic field. Madam Speaker, this session paper is coming within the time when it's required, but the point is that we must be aware that we are going to face challenges from those manufacturers of these automobiles from outside. And we should also think of ourselves not to limit our people to an extent that we are dictated by the Western world of what we should import and to what year and what limit. For as it is now, you cannot import any car from outside which is more than 8 years old. Did we do it for our own gain, or did we do it because it was imposed upon us by those people from outside? Did we consider the economic gain of our people and affordability or not? So to me, I support this motion as it is, Madam Speaker. This session paper is timely, and it's time that we should consider of how we can invest in that field of producing automobile system or automobile to be on our own, done by our own engineers, and which can support the local industries, even to create employment for our youth. I therefore support the said motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable John Waluke, member for Sirisia. Well, the system is showing me that the Honorable Waluke is here. That is okay. The Honorable Charo Kazungu, member for Ganze.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I also wish to add my voice on the national sessional paper on the automotive policy. It's very true that in Kenya we need such a policy because our country has become a dumping ground of large car manufacturers from outside this country. We have been importing a lot of cars from abroad, but the condition of these cars is not the best. As much now we have become like a dumping ground. What we have as cars on our roads are not cars per se, but they are death contraptions because they failed the test of security, they failed the test of safety. So I know as a country we had started on a very positive note during the Moi regime when they started the Nyayo Pioneer car. But I don't know where the rain started beating us and this idea was abandoned along the way. By now as a country, I know we'll be having cars that are made in Kenya. We'll be having cars that we could import to our neighboring countries or even to the outside world. But that idea was abandoned, and it's high time now that we start bringing such a policy so that we can encourage such kind of investments. Madam Speaker, as a country, we need to start encouraging investments in car manufacturing. We need to fund our universities so that they can do research where now we can start bringing our cars, we can start bringing our vehicles that are made in Kenya, and that will make Kenya proud. So, Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker, I support this motion, and I want this Parliament to approve it in the soonest time possible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, member for Ganze. The Honorable Abraham Kirwa, member for Mosop.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I would like to also support this motion about the session paper number 01 of 2022, National Automotive Policy. Madam Speaker, this is overdue. We needed to actually have implemented most of these suggestions that are put on this session paper. Kenya is a country that is still developing. We still depend almost 60 to 80% on importation of vehicles from other countries. By doing so, Madam Speaker, we are spending a lot of our money outside the country. As we are going to approve this session paper, it will help us to improve our local manufacturing. It will help us to invest in our own country. It is going to create job opportunities for most of our youth who are unemployed, and not only the youth, the citizens of this country will get an opportunity to actually be employed in most of these manufacturing industries. So as we move forward as a nation and as a country, we need to look for more opportunities, but this is one of them, having or an assembly plan based here in the country, also encouraging our Kenyans to buy Kenyan-made vehicles. I know most of us as Kenyans, we import our vehicles from Japan, from Germany, and many other countries. And their economies have continued to grow because we support from our country. But as we move forward and as we change these policies, it is going to help us as a nation to increase our GDP, to increase the ownership of vehicles, coming up with maybe ownership schemes where people will have to invest in so that they can buy a vehicle. A common person sometimes may not have cash, maybe 3 million, 4 million to buy a vehicle. But if we can, as a nation, come up with a scheme that would, like housing buying schemes, this would be also vehicle buying schemes that would allow the common mwananchi to own a vehicle by just depositing a little bit of money, and then he gets a chance to buy a brand new vehicle and just pay slowly because it's manufactured here. That way it will help us. We will also try to encourage corporations or companies to do leasing, brand new vehicles to lease. That way they'll be able to continue purchasing the locally manufactured vehicles in the country. That way our GDP will continue to grow, our youth and our people will continue to get jobs, and we will continue as a country to be self-sustained. We need also to implement low-emission vehicles in our country. If we are talking of climate change and making sure that we have a country that is not polluted, then we need to make sure that most of the vehicles which are on the road, which are emitting a lot of dangerous gas, should not be operating on our roads. So I think as a policy, we need to make sure that it's implemented. The police should be looking out for some of those vehicles which are truly emitting a lot of unnecessary gas. And then as well, we encourage electric vehicles. If we continue as a nation to depend on fuel, as we saw during the last few years, the price of gas has continued to go up. And as it continues to go up, it will really affect us as a nation because we depend on it. So if most of the vehicles will be electric or even solar, that means we are going to reduce our dependence on fuel, and we will be able to save more. We will not be importing as much fuel as we should. So I think part of this policy is truly to encourage Kenyans to actually, as we will be manufacturing these vehicles, we manufacture some of the electric vehicles that will consume less gas. So I am just for the, I support this motion, Madam Speaker, that as a country, we should pass this motion and encourage it. And also, the issue of reducing the number of years that we're allowed to import a vehicle. At the moment, we're talking of 5 years or less. They say by 2024, it is going to be 3 years, and then we'll end up to 0. I don't support it. I think also people should still be given an opportunity to import a vehicle. It may be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We should not completely go to 0, where you cannot be allowed to import any vehicle. You should still be able to, but the vehicles that will be manufactured locally should be cheaper and affordable enough for local citizens to be able to own a vehicle. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support this motion.
Very well. The Honorable Member for Rangwe, Honorable Lillian Gogo, seems to have withdrawn from the chamber, and interestingly, the card is indicating that she is here. The Honorable Member for Emurua Dikri, the Honorable Johanna Ngeno. The Honorable Johanna Ngeno indicates that he is targeting a different motion, and that is very well in order. I will go to the Honorable Omboko Milemba, Member for Emuhaya. The Honorable Member for Baringo North, the Honorable Joseph Makilap.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas I want to support this sessional paper on national automotive policy, when I look at it, Madam Speaker, this policy was approved by the Ministry of Industrialization in
Honorable Member for Baringo North, I have an intervention by the Honorable John Waweru, Member for Dagoretti South. What is out of order, Honorable KJ?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I think it's out of order.
So today.
So then you need to remove your card. Yes. You have indicated an intervention.
No, Madam Speaker, and I want you to note this. I think there must be an issue with the equipment, because I had actually even been put off while I was on standby to speak, and I'm waiting to speak on this one. So I'm praying that by the action that the desk will take, they will not remove me from the queue, because I'm quite advanced in the queue. So even as they are withdrawing that, I pray that they don't remove me on the queue. So I will keep my request to speak on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I can
you may proceed, Member for Baringo North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was informing this House that this national automotive policy was approved by the Ministry of Industrialization 4 years down the line in 2018. Madam Speaker, it tells you how lazy governments in implementing serious policy papers for this country. Madam Speaker, I think this time around there is need to fast-track this national automotive policy so that we can harness talents, ideas that can be able to keep to the realization of even a car manufacturing plant here in our country. Madam Speaker, other nations have used our sessional papers to develop their countries. We are a country that is having very good ideas, but when it comes to funding these ideas through research, we fail, Madam Speaker. Just like this national policy has tracked for 4 years down the line. So Speaker, Madam Speaker, Singapore and Malaysia, Singapore in particular, has used our sessional paper of 1965 to develop their country. Other countries which got independence at the same time as our country have moved on. What is it that is lacking in our country so that when we pass this particular national automotive policy, we can be able to fast-track it, we can be able to inject the right resources, so that we can have the right things being done, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when I grew up, when I was in primary, we used to have what is called Thika Motor Vehicle Assembly. It was in THC. Today, Madam Speaker, everything we are importing. We are not only saying the manufacturing of vehicles, even manufacturing of spare parts of motor vehicles is an issue. Madam Speaker, this is a nation that wants to import even a toothpick. Madam Speaker, this is a very serious matter. When we pass this national automotive policy, what is required by the ministry, therefore, is to put money for research. There is no good machine that can be brought to the market without a proper research. The vehicles that we drive in this country, Madam Speaker, are actually manufactured in other countries through research, and they are made to suit their climate, to suit their roads, but they are not meant for this nation. And that is why there is a lot of accidents, there is a lot of spare parts getting lost, because we are using vehicles from other countries which was developed for their own nations. So, Madam Speaker, I am supporting this national automotive policy so that the ministry in charge, we can actually have resources channeled for research in our universities and reduce some of the costs that are not beneficial to this country, Madam Speaker, so that we can put resources in things that change our life, change our economy, drive our economy to the next level. Madam Speaker, if you look today, why do we need so much about history? Yes, history is good, but there is that we can learn history today. Even someone who has not gone to school can learn history, can know that River Nile starts from this end to this end, or who was the first person to come to this country. Madam Speaker, we must reduce the CRE, the history, and move to a skilled knowledge in our country. That is what will generate the motor vehicles. That is when we can have the ideas of people, young people, talents, who can actually manufacture. I remember, Madam Speaker, there was a young man who wanted to make an aeroplane in Kitale. And coupled with those ideas until it collapsed somewhere. So what we are, that young man, if he could have gone to school, get money for research, get money to actually try things, then we should be able to drive our economy using knowledge acquired from research, manufacture vehicles, manufacture spare parts, and actually be able to grow our GDP as a nation. So, Madam Speaker, I hope this time around, as Honorable Wako moves this national sessional paper, that this country become now a country of serious men and women that mean their words, mean what they produce as sessional papers, so that we can actually support, like Kenya Association of Manufacturers. If we can support the Kenya Association of Manufacturers to pump in resources for research, Madam Speaker, we shall have industrialists, people who are able to manufacture serious vehicles. Look at here, Madam Speaker. This country is a dumping ground now of motorcycles. Can you imagine if we have about 10 million motorcycles which are dead in this country or finished? Madam Speaker, where do we keep them? So, if we control manufacture so that we live to what we call buy Kenya, is it called build Kenya, buy Kenya, build Kenya. That is the only way we can be able to become an industrialized nation. Madam Speaker, we should even come up with policies so that companies like Toyota Kenya need not to come and assemble here. Let us have an investors who come and put a plan, a manufacturing plan in Kenya, so that our youth can actually go and undergo internship and training, acquire skills, and in the long run, be able to become manufacturers themselves because they have acquired knowledge. This is the only way our country is going to grow. If we depend on imports and shortcuts from scrupulous businessmen, where are we going as a nation? So, Madam Speaker, I support this because it will support talents, it will support knowledge, it will support competitiveness, and create business and create wealth for our nation, and we shall have very many of our youths engaged and are in employment. Madam Speaker, we have a lot of space in Kenya, and I want to believe that when we pass this sessional paper, the next thing is allocate resources. Allocate resources in our budgets to our universities to conduct research and to our young industrialists so that they can be able to manufacture the right things that can actually be able to be used in Kenya. Look at India, Madam Speaker. India economy, they all use Mahindra because buy India, build India. So we need to have our own Mahindra manufactured here in Kenya, what Nyayo call Nyayo Pioneer cars. Pioneer 1, Pioneer 2, and so on. Until we have even Pioneer Maclab 2. And then we can move. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the sessional paper.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Lillian Gogo, Member for Rangwe constituency.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, the Honorable Speaker, for me to add my voice to a consideration of the sessional paper number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy that has been brought to the floor by the Honorable Wako. Honorable Speaker, this is a timely paper, and as has been indicated, it's been hanging around for the longest. Once in the course of this week on Tuesday, Honorable Speaker, I was talking to a team of women engineers from the Institute of Engineers of Kenya in Mombasa. And I had a team of very brilliant engineers who are women, who are trained, brilliant and charged to go to put the innovation system of our country to the next level. And Honorable Speaker, we want to be seen, or we should be seen as a nation, to have some concern on innovation and coming up with our own, especially on the automobile industry. We even import parts which we could easily craft around, and when this is done by our team of well-trained and graduated engineers, we create job opportunities for young people. But what also takes me aback, Honorable Speaker, is that we do not have any in the name or by way of an automotive system that we can call our own. And when we go to the villages, Honorable Speaker, you see young people, young minds, children who are still in primary school, struggling to come up with systems of what look like aeroplanes. And they want to bring up things that would fly. But this has not been well captured to the extent that this talent is tapped. This is a good sessional paper, Honorable Speaker. We want to support creativity and innovation of our own. Honorable Speaker, we lose a lot of money when we import from other countries. They gain. They take advantage of us when we import from them. We should have a system, Honorable Speaker, that we also have our own that we can also export even to our neighboring countries. I think this needs to be supported, and as has already been elucidated, we need to support it with funds. We need to get serious to business. Honorable Speaker, as a country and as a government, we need to come up with systems that are going to encourage people who are specialized in these areas to continue with what they know best. We want to put food on the table of the ordinary Kenyan. Unless a country industrializes, unless we have places where young Kenyan men and women can go and earn a living, and also just appreciate what they are able to do out of their own, Honorable Speaker, then I think we are retrogressing several years after independence, Honorable Speaker. I'm supporting this on the basis, Honorable Speaker, that we are even changing our curriculum to be competency-based. And this is oriented to the talent, to the likability, to the ability of the young learners, and as they proceed. This can only work if we appreciate that we can come up with an automotive sector that is well regulated, it is funded, it is looked at, it is run by professionals to the extent that we come up with systems that are sustainable, Honorable Speaker. Right now we have the motorcycle system. We have many, many young border riders. I don't know, I'm not very sure, that we are not even able to come up with a factory, Honorable Speaker, that can produce parts for motorcycles. And we have hundreds and thousands of motorcycles in this country. I'm imagining a situation where if this was well choreographed to the extent that we look at generating jobs for even women, for young people, for people with disability. If this happens, Honorable Speaker, then I think it's going to raise our economy to the next level, Honorable Speaker. And with this, I support this sessional paper, and I hope that we take it on from this and put it to the next level so that we don't just discuss matters on the floor of the House without taking it further to the point of implementation. Speaker, I thank you.
Very well, Member for Rangwe. The Honorable Omboko Milemba, Member for Emuhaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this chance to speak on the National Automotive Policy carried in sessional paper number 1 of 2022. One is to begin by thanking the Cabinet under the presidency of William Ruto for actually having sat and enacted and actually passed, approved this sessional paper number 1. Honorable Speaker, it's also true that this paper has been lying in government circles since the year 2018 and had not received approval. And that's why I'm thanking the government of the day, because they have exactly done that, and therefore giving light and moving steps forward in realizing industrialization. Honorable Speaker, the history of development begins with the old formations of old Stone Age, but later on we moved to agrarian revolution. And from agrarian revolution, we moved to industrial revolution. And I think this sessional paper is trying to push us to the level of industrial revolution. Unfortunately, we shall, of course, need to do more as government and as a people, because the current revolution that is now moving very fast is the IT revolution, which has taken the world. But this is the correct steps, because over-reliance on agrarian revolution and exportation of agricultural products like we are doing is not able to sustain our lives and our economy today. And therefore, this sessional paper number 1 of 2022 is a breakthrough to try and move Kenya from agrarian level to industrial level. Honorable Speaker, this sessional paper make sure that now we shall make the automotive sector to realize its full potential. Again, Honorable Speaker, it means that the automotive sector will be a major player in industry. And if this is carried, then it means that our GDP will improve. So as we get improved GDP from agriculture, we shall also be improving our GDP through industrialization. Honorable Speaker, this sessional paper, once approved, it means that there will be improved local automotive assembly ecosystem in the country and expanded local market. And this will go beyond not only just manufacturing. Many of the speakers here have spoken about manufacturing vehicles in Kenya. Yes, that will be the ultimate goal. But even before manufacturing, this paper puts us to a level where we can start assembling vehicles. Not only vehicles, Honorable Speaker, but also assemble other automotives like motorcycles, also assemble other automotives like agricultural machinery, which are very important in the level and the interest and policy of the Kenya Kwanza government, because agriculture is being given the forefront position. And one other item that takes a lot of money for the agricultural sector is the importation of agricultural machinery, Honorable Speaker. So this will be a major breakthrough that will now make us start assembling agricultural automotives within this country. And this, if this happens, then we shall progress. Honorable Speaker, certainly with the passing of this paper, if it goes through, then we shall have creation of a National Automotive Council. A National Automotive Council will actually create a platform, a national platform for all players in this sector of automotive production. And this will actually make it easy for them to market their products, not only in Kenya, but expand the marketing of these products around the East African region, and possibly in the Africa region, and possibly in the world later on. And therefore, this paper must be accompanied with bilateral agreements with our neighbors who can easily buy our own products, either as parts or as assembled machineries, not only motor vehicles. I know Kenya imports vehicles that are 8 years old, but we shall be able to manufacture all these things. Honorable Speaker, this will promote people within this sector to start having quicker growth in terms of GDP, like I said. There'll be increased value addition on the products we have here in Kenya. It will actually enhance innovation. Many speakers have spoken about university. This technology and this policy will actually enhance innovation, and coupled with the new system, CBC, this should play magic. And that is why I have been a defender of CBC all along, that this is a good system. And I've always said that let the junior secondary be domiciled in the high school, so that the students can move from primary and know that they are moving to another level where they can even be more creative. Without losing track, Honorable Speaker, this paper opens way for research in industrial sector, and it also ensures a clean and sustainable environment in our manufacturing sector. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, this is a well thought out paper. It will move Kenya to another level in terms of industrialization, and it will open space. I think I forgot to speak about job creation, because if all these things happen in that manner, then it will create a lot of employment for not only youths, but people in Kenya generally. And once you create employment and money is going to the pockets of the people, then you create what we call the multiplier effect in economics, which now will make every sector and every people within the communities to benefit. Honorable Speaker, this is a masterpiece, and I want to support. Thank you.
Very well spoken, member for Emuhaya. The Honorable Member for Igembe Central, Honorable Daniel Karido.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to address on this session, paper 1 on automobile policy. I believe this is a wonderful policy, and I congratulate the government of the day for bringing this session paper, and I believe the government will go ahead and do the funding for this session paper, for this idea to be a reality. Madam Speaker, what encourages production is consumption. And in this case, if the government funds the technology in this country, and this country is blessed with very brilliant brains and young people talented with great ideas, and we have reached milestones on technology in this country, and I believe building classic automobiles will not be a big thing in this country if really the government supports the entrepreneurs to do the research and put up the wonderful automobiles that we need. I believe, as earlier said by some other members, we also need to put up the motorbikes, because we have a very great potential, we have a great market. Madam Speaker, Kenya is among the best model of technology in East and Central Africa. And if we have a big market in the world of East and Central Africa, whereby none of these other countries in this region that has had this idea of putting up their own motor vehicles, we will have a very big market, and there's no economy in this world that can grow without exports. Which means, for example, if you look at the countries that have grown, Japan, China, and those other Middle East countries, they have grown because they have had a chance to export their products. Therefore, we can take advantage of Africa, whereby other countries are a bit sleepy, and build our automobile and have a market around the world. We will have our GDP growing very fast, our youth employment will be available, and we will be in a position to control the region as far as economic giants is concerned. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I will support this session paper, and I believe the government is going to implement it fully, and very soon we are going to have our own automobiles, distributing and selling them around the world. Madam Speaker, locally, we are buying importing very many vehicles through the county governments, individual ownership, the national governments. We are importing very many vehicles every year at a very exorbitant prices. Therefore, we will be in a position to be exporters of automobiles around Africa and even the world. Therefore, I always support this idea. And since we have already established institutions like Jomo Kenyatta University of JKUAT and other institutions like the one in Mombasa, whereby we have students already seated learning on these automobiles, it will be easy for us to start this program, and we will build our country. Therefore, I fully support it, and I believe it will come to reality, and we will be proud owners of vehicles that are our own. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, member for Igembe Central. The Honorable Member for Siaya County, Honorable Christine Ombaka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. This is a very, very good bill that we need to pass very fast. Kenya is quite developed to some extent. Already, if you look at what we offer in schools, at the universities and colleges, you will see that we have programs or curriculum on engineering. Engineering embraces quite a lot of what we need in this automobile bill. The engineering, you have mechanical engineering and so on. Already we have minds of young people who train as engineers. And these are the branches where automotive engineering can also be introduced. And a lot of them do offer that. You look at the children we have today. These children are already very creative. These are the children that are actually making vehicles using carton boxes. They are using tins of Kimbo. They are using mud, which they actually create. And you see them drive them along, pull them together. And these are creative minds at such an early age. This mind grows up to the university level where they go study engineering. So really, in this country, we have people who can be trained. We have young minds that are ready to be trained in this area so that we can actually manufacture vehicles. Look at your car sector. When your car is broken down and you don't know what to do, you rush your car there for repairs and they do it. These are young minds who have learned through the hard way. Some of them may not have reached some very high level in education, but they're already so skilled they can repair your car without going to any university or any other training institution. So to me, I'm seeing a whole world of opportunities that we do have where we can come up with automotive being, created and also assembled in this country. Opportunities are plenty because we have young minds that are trainable. We have what it takes to train young minds. This morning, we had a meeting in the education committee. Somebody from one of the universities in Canada presenting to us the kind of courses they are offering in mathematics. They are changing even the idea of teaching the kind of arithmetic that we learned. It is skill-based, it is problem-solving, and it is really practical. This is the way to go, and we are going to get more students running for such courses so that they actually can be engaged in manufacturing industries, especially in the motor industry. I do believe that a lot can be achieved. What we need to highlight also is that the Ministry of Education should give colleges and universities money for research, money that can improve the technical aspect of our training. It is weak because money is never factored in. Even students who graduate in engineering don't have good opportunities to go for attachment. because there are no industries where they can go for their 3 months or 6 months attachment. So they suffer a lot around here because that is an area that is neglected. Yet we have students in engineering who can easily become manufacturers in automatic engineering. My emphasis here is that opportunity is high. This is a policy that is coming at the right time, since we also have a ministry of industrialization. This needs to be seen to be more practical than the way it is currently. This is the area to put money into. This is where industrialization will take place. We do assemble bicycles, but we can do much more. Not just vehicles, but also tractors. There are so many things that are mechanical here that can be used, that fall within the automobile engineering. So I think that a lot can be achieved, and this is coming at a time when training will produce good brains. We will be able to come up with our own factories where we can manufacture and repair and maintain technical mobiles, motor vehicles, even including bicycles, including tractors, and so many things that move. We also have the trains that we have today. Who's going to repair that? We need brains for this technical area that has been neglected for a long time. Otherwise, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. This is a good bill that is coming at the right time, and we need to embrace it. Thank you, and support it.
Thank you, Member for Siaya. The Honorable Member for Marakwet West, Honorable Timothy Toroitich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this motion. Madam Speaker, Kenya has become a consumer country. We have become consumers of Western technology and Western products. Madam Speaker, and the reason for this is that the Western countries have invested heavily on matters to do with whatever they are giving out so that you consume. Madam Speaker, if you compare vehicles that are manufactured in Japan or other Western countries, even Asia, they are of good quality. Madam Speaker, I'm aware there was a policy in 2009 that attempted to adopt the national automotive policy in Kenya. Madam Speaker, the same was not adopted finally because it attempted to, I have seen somewhere, it attempted to do away with imported cars in this country. Madam Speaker, that is the reason why that policy never took off. Madam Speaker, we cannot afford to do away with imported second-hand in this country unless we are able to develop capacity. The biggest problem, Madam Speaker, that we have in this country is capacity. And that starts with our schooling system. Madam Speaker, in this country, we do not invest a lot in critical thinking and solving problem issues. We only teach in schools, but we do not invest in matters to do with critical thinking. And that is something that we must be able to input in our syllabus, so that as much as we teach theory, we must also teach the critical aspects in both our primary level and our secondary level. Madam Speaker, we have invested in TVETs in this country, and we have students who are studying courses like diploma in mechanical engineering. Madam Speaker, if we do not have an automotive industry in this country, then where are those students who graduate from TVETs? Where are they going to work in? So, Madam Speaker, I support fully that we adopt this policy, but we must be very cautious. We must have capacity. Number two, we must have enough funding in this country so that that automotive industry can be able to take off. Madam Speaker, if you look currently, this country has banned vehicles that are out of the 8-year age. In my own opinion, it is a tragedy that we are going to realize its fruit very soon. Because what is happening in Kenya is that a person who cannot be able to afford an 8-year-old vehicle will only recycle the old vehicles in the market. And that is something that we must be able to relook at as a country, because we are recycling vehicles in the country. I have seen vehicles going to Uganda. I've seen very nice NZD's vehicles, what you call Toyota Corolla, they call it nyoka in the local language. But Speaker, they are essentially, if you look at them, they are essentially good cars if you compare with the recycled motor vehicles in Kenya. So, Madam Speaker, I support in terms that, of course, this will create employment, because one of the biggest challenges, and even the members will tell you here, the biggest challenge that we have in this country is unemployment. So if we have a good automobile company in Kenya that is well run, is well funded, it will be able to create employment, and most of our people will be able to benefit in this country. So, Madam Speaker, I rise to support the policy, the senior paper on the automotive, on the creation or the setting up of the automotive industry in Kenya. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, Member for Marakwet. Member for Funyula, the Honorable Wilberforce Oundo.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the motion in hand. And I want to request KJ to be just patient, as he has always been. His constituency is just a walking distance compared to mine that we have to take is a long distance. Honorable Speaker, I stand here to make my contribution to sessional paper number 1 of 2020 of National Automotive Policy. And I must disclose, Honorable Speaker, I interacted with this policy at the formative stage while I sat in the Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives in the last Parliament. And I want to put it on record, as one of colleagues has mentioned, that the government is lazy. Indeed, the process to adopt or prepare this policy started way back, I'm told sometimes around 2010, but there has been push and pull by various players and actors in the industry. It's only last year, towards the end of last year, that we had a consultative meeting in the county hall that we were able to iron out very many issues with very many stakeholders. Honorable Speaker, the economic blueprint of Kenya, Vision 2030, envisages that Kenya should be an industrialized country by the year 2030, being a middle-income country, providing high quality of life for all citizens of this country. Honorable Speaker, for us to do this, we are not going to achieve that goal or objective by relying on agriculture. We are not going to achieve that objective by relying on primary industry. We have no choice but to move to manufacturing industry so that we are able to employ very many people, increase our GDP, per capita income, and generally increase the quality of life. For us to do this, we have to focus on manufacturing. There has always been a target that 20% of the GDP must be attributed to manufacturing. But in the recent past, even the 9% that the Jubilee government inherited in 2013 has been falling down to the present level of 7.5. And this has therefore informed concerted efforts to review various policies, regulations, and laws pertaining to manufacturing in this industry. When you do a scanning, we discover that manufacturing or motor vehicle assembly and manufacture of various building motor vehicle parts is a potential industry for the very young people and the very many people we have here. Honorable Speaker, Kenya, and specifically Nairobi, pioneered the juakali industry. And that in juakali industry, our artisans can fabricate and have continued to fabricate very many parts that can be used elsewhere and all over. Honorable Speaker, many of us still remember with nostalgia the Nyayo cars. We were small then, and we reveled in it, and we were very proud. And we could write letters to our friends outside this country and tell them, yes, we are also Kenyans, we are growing, we are going to have our vehicles. But typically, like all policies and projects in this country, there wasn't adequate feasibility study, there wasn't adequate research to ascertain its viability in the long run. So consequently, Honorable Speaker, the Nyayo car just fell off the line, and that's where we are today. If you take your time to go to numerical machines complex, you would see the kind of fabrications, fabricators, and machines that are there. You would wonder why we continue to import vehicles. You would wonder why we continue to import vehicle parts. Honorable Speaker, we have now resorted to importing even used parts. And I must admit, many of us here, because of the hard economic times, they will always go look for ex-Japan brake pads, ex-Japan water pumps, ex-Japan fuel pumps, and those kind of things. We'll go look for ex-Japan slim engines, yet we have the potential and the capacity. That's why when I stand here today, I support this policy. And this policy, Honorable Speaker, has got far-reaching recommendations or policy prescriptions that, if fully implemented, will generally move this country to the next level. Our overarching goal of the policy, Honorable Speaker, is to reduce, starting from current, to increase the assembly from the current 7,000 units to 20,000 units in the 5 years. Honorable Speaker, to implement a total ban on importation of used, fully built units for commercial vehicles. And this, Honorable Speaker, we as a country, we must support. If you look at the details of the data available, commercial vehicles have been the biggest contributors towards accidents on these roads of ours. Commercial vehicles have been the biggest contributor to the damage on our road infrastructure. Honorable Speaker, used commercial vehicles that are in bad shape are the biggest contributors to pollution and emissions in this country. So therefore, where I stand, and based on data available, research available, it is important that we must implement the objectives and goals of this particular policy. Honorable Speaker, many of us have complained that total ban, eventual ban by 2024 of imported vehicles is counterproductive, and it will lead to challenges in this country. Honorable Speaker, that's far from the truth. The truth of the matter, that this country, if we get serious, we can actually resolve that issue. One of the policy prescriptions, Honorable Speaker, is that they require to develop a vehicle purchase scheme to enable the purchase of new locally assembled vehicles. Support a progressive leasing policy for the public sector to expand access to new vehicles made in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, it has therefore to be a concerted effort, a combined effort, both as we ban, we must improve capacity. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we must have ways and means to enable Kenyans buy vehicles using a very flexible approach to in financing motor vehicle acquisition. Many have complained that fully assembled vehicles in Kenya are exorbitantly expensive. Yes, it is, because we have a challenge, the cost of production in this country. We have a challenge with technology, so that every product that we produce is far much more expensive compared to our neighbors. Honorable Speaker, we live in a country, we live in a region where we are extremely advanced. And the amount of investment we have placed in TVET, we have placed in TTI, has produced to us in this country artisans, mechanics, electricians, electronic engineers, and the rest that can actually produce, design, manufacture, produce these items for the purposes of distribution in the East African countries. Honorable Speaker, as we approve this policy, it's upon the Ministry, the Department of Industrialization, to move with speed, as I've clearly put in their policy, to develop regulations to implement the policy. And probably it might even require amendments to the various acts of parliament to develop a motorcycle assembly regulations. Honorable Speaker, allow me to make a few comments about a motorcycle which are metamorphosized over time to be called border borders. I come from the border point of Busia town, and in the 1980s, if you did not own a bicycle, you are not considered a man enough. Over time, motorcycles came, bodabodas came, they killed that spirit, Honorable Speaker, and it was always a joy, Honorable Speaker, to give a ride to a lady, a young girl, on a bicycle, and apply emergency brakes. And then when the bodies move, Honorable Speaker, you can go back in the evening and feel happy. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is important that the automotive industry, we urge all the stakeholders, be they motor vehicle dealers, importers, maybe those refurbishers, and who do all those kind of things, be they the new assemblers, be they the leasing companies. This is a panacea to our problems in this country. I urge them to accept and let us proceed and implement this policy. It's going to increase employment, it's going to reduce radiation emissions, it's going to reduce the adverse effects of climate change, and we are going to be proud as a nation in the East African region. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Undo, the master and originator of Border Border. Thank you and well spoken. Next to speak on this is Honorable John Kiare.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm excited to be contributing to this motion on the consideration of this sessional paper number 1 of 2022, which the sessional paper itself being the NAP, the National Automotive Policy. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, manufacturing has acted as a growth catalyst for economies. We know what economies that have gone into industrialization and manufacturing, to what levels they have gotten in terms of development. And Mr. Speaker, this development has to be informed by policy. And this sessional paper is one such policy. Such policy ought to be intentional, Mr. Speaker. Such policy ought to be deliberate. And I have scanned through the 52 pages of this national automotive policy, Mr. Speaker, trying to see if it has lived up to these tenets of being intentional and being deliberate. And Mr. Speaker, I want to stand here and say that I support this national automotive policy. Mr. Speaker, this policy will provide an enabling environment for all the players in this automotive industry, Mr. Speaker. But beyond that, it shall start us on a journey of solving some of the problems that we are facing in places like cities, where we have a big problem of mass transport. We have a big problem of mass transit and public transport, big problem of congestion, big problem of development of infrastructure in the transport sector. And Mr. Speaker, we are not dreaming and building castles in the air. It is happening. Even in Africa, Mr. Speaker, Nigeria is in automotive production. So is Egypt. So is South Africa. So is Morocco. And even Kenya was well on its way to getting to the stages at which places like South Africa are in the 80s. Mr. Speaker, if your memory serves you right, you will remember that we had KVM, Kenya Vehicle Manufacturing, domiciled in Thika, where they would assemble the Land Rover. In fact, at some point in the 80s, there was an offer by Peugeot, a France company, to have us manufacture a very popular variant of their Peugeot, which was called the Peugeot 504. I don't know where this offer slipped through the fingers and how we lost it, but by now, we will probably would be at the level that South Africa is and Egypt is. Mr. Speaker, as we speak today, Kenya is only manufacturing parts. And even in that manufacturing, it's not even manufacture. It is actually assembly of parts. And this national automotive policy even lists the parts that we are manufacturing in this country. There are only 37 parts that we have been able to manufacture as a country. In this around 60 years that we have been independent, you can imagine as a country we are only able to manufacture, to assemble 37 parts. Mr. Speaker, then this policy becomes important, because then we can take on from where we left it in the 80s, when we were talking about Thika becoming the Bristol of East Africa, where we were talking about Thika becoming the Manchester of East Africa, Thika becoming the industrial capital of East Africa. At this age, Mr. Speaker, we shall be speaking beyond Thika, because one of the things that has been captured in this policy is zoning, Mr. Speaker, where we delocalize the manufacturing not only of motor vehicles, but even the components and the parts that will go into manufacturing. So much so that your native county, Mr. Speaker, can take up a part and build an industry around a part. It could be a wiper, it could be a headlight, it could be a bumper. Another county where the Honorable Oundo comes from, Busia, would take up another part and they would manufacture another part. We in the Goreti South constituency would be left to do the finishing. Out of the hides and the skins of the cows that we are slaughtering at Githinjiro, the Goreti market, the slaughterhouses, we can be left now to imagine how we do the seats, leather, the finishing, the very beautiful finishing of these cars, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to my mind, a component that has been captured in this national automotive policy is the element of beefing up research. Because when we beef up the research, we shall now start understanding first the history of how you become an industrial country. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to vehemently refute and oppose the words that were spoken here by the Honorable Makilaps, saying that for us to develop, we will need to reduce on the CRE and the history and the soft subjects. Mr. Speaker, one of the reasons why we are suffering as a developing country is because we are not emphasizing on the soft, subjects in this country. Mr. Speaker, any country that ever developed had a place for its poets. It had a place for its authors. It had a place for its historians. It had a place for its humorists. Mr. Speaker, as the West was developing, so were their artists at that time. If you do away with these soft issues, if you do away with fine art as a subject, for example, who will be designing these cars? The art of designing an automobile is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Countries that have mastered the design of a motor vehicle are exporting their talent. Countries like France, countries like Malaysia, countries like India in Asia are exporting their designers, because as we develop, we cannot have a dichotomy of disciplines in academia. We need to develop our scientists. We also need to develop our artists. Research, Mr. Speaker, will also inform what kind of car we will want to develop, Mr. Speaker. In this day and age, we have to start thinking about a green vehicle, Mr. Speaker. How about Kenya becomes the first country to design how we can get biofuels powering our cars in Africa, and we take the lead on that, and it becomes our M-Pesa. The way we were able to leapfrog to the front of the telcos with our fintech, we can leapfrog with biofuel and green vehicles in this country. They don't have to even be electrical vehicles. We can decide that we will power our vehicles with the seed of a tree that I know that grows in around Mount Kenya, a tree that has this one seed that has such high content of oils that can be developed to give us biofuels, Mr. Speaker. I hesitate to name the tree because I only know it in my native language. And I know some scientists here, if I named it, would be able to translate to English, Mr. Speaker. Research, Mr. Speaker, is going to talk to us about the interconnectedness of industries, Mr. Speaker. Because a robust automotive industry will give rise to other sub-industries around that effort, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, research will also inform how we approach the cottage industries. Mr. Speaker, think about it. Some of the biggest names in automotive industry are human beings. The companies that we know, Honda, Suzuki, Ford, Hyundai, Toyota, all these are individual human beings who started out in a small cottage industry, building a car. They are now international household names, Mr. Speaker. So we can have someone called Kiarie, somewhere in Motoine, who will start assembling cars in a cottage industry somewhere at the corner of Nairobi in Motoine, and end up being an international name that will be recognized for the efforts building a car of this nature. Mr. Speaker, I was extremely excited going through chapter 8 of the policy that is talking about communication, publicity, and information. What we know in this house needs to go out to the publics so that the publics become our biggest supporters in this effort. Mr. Speaker, chapter 4 of this national automotive policy lays out the objectives that we want to achieve with this policy. And there are quite a number of them. I am not able to talk about them. What I want to put in as a last word, Mr. Speaker, if this minute will allow me, it is to say that as we are thinking about the national automotive policy, let us not be limited to only the manufacture of.
Give Honorable Kiarie 1 minute, please, so that we hear. Give him 1 minute, please. Yes, you have a microphone close to you. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I humbly appreciate your magnanimity for these extra minutes to say that even as we are thinking about the national automotive policy, we will need to think wider because, and I've noted even in the national automotive policy, they have noted that we will need to think beyond just the manufacture of the vehicle, the car itself. We'll have to think about the passenger transportation framework. There have been some efforts in this country with the mass transit, with the mass rapid transit systems. There has been an effort which is now stalling in Nairobi of the bus transit, of the bus rapid transit system. There is also the thinking around two-wheeled automobiles, three-wheeled automobiles, or even quad bikes that are in the category of motorcycles. As we develop cars, do we have a space for all the automobiles that we shall be creating? Then if we think wider, we shall think of what infrastructure we want to build so that a vehicle on a highway should not be speeding at the speed of 110 kilometers per hour while there is a motorcycle on the same road, a bicycle on the same road, and human transport and pedestrians walking on the same road. So even as we are thinking about this automobile policy, let us think wider to see what else we need to develop beyond just building a car. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute.
Very well. Honorable Shakil Shabir, Kisumu East.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this consideration of session paper number 1 of 2022. I remember there was a session paper number 1, was it number 6? Number 9 in 1965. We never did anything. A beautiful session paper that was borrowed and used by Singapore, Malaysia, and others, and made us. We did the we did the work. They did the implementation. The biggest problem that we face is implementation. The national automotive policy is nothing new. It has been there in many countries: Nigeria, South Africa, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, many other countries. So what we're doing is basically following the old routine. Because so-and-so has an automotive policy, we must have an automotive policy. I have read this automotive policy, the 44 pages of it. And I'm going to say this, and I'm sorry, it's a good idea, but there was a good idea 20 years ago. Now they're coming up. I mean, what did they say? Seek to create an enabling environment for the automotive sector to realize its full potential and position as a major player in the industry. Aims to improving local automotive assembly ecosystems to expand the local market size by promoting manufacturing. It's good words, but literally we are talking about the old petrol vehicles over 40, 30 years ago. This was the automotive policy that was to be used for the Nyo car. I've seen that Nyo car. In India, they stopped importation of cars. They took an old Fiat model and built it 100% in India. They called it the Ambassador. Nobody, not even the Prime Minister of India, could buy another car other than the Ambassador. I sat in that vehicle, and if we got there, then they started the smaller vehicles, 1000 cc. Nobody, whether you were a minister or whatever, could go more than 1000 cc's. Not long ago, in the 10th Parliament, when I was listening, I was a member of Parliament, we were told we are going to ban all four-wheel drives, and we are going to bring Passat, and we are going to bring the smaller vehicles. And there was none other than the finance minister at the time, Uhuru Kenyatta. What happened? I think we went and buy some Passats because it suited somebody. We found the Mercedes were cheaper than the Passat to run. But the whole thing fell apart. If you look at our car park, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are full of four-wheel drives, totally inefficient fuel consumption, huge guzzlers of power. You go to the Westminster Parliament, people are driving in, coming in on bicycles. You go to the Malaysian Parliament, that's what they're doing. They're coming in on Malaysian vehicles, and other things like this. So as I say, it's a good policy. We wanted it for the numerical machines, we wanted it for other things. But we have taken and cannibalized the automotive policy, a national automotive policy of other countries. I want you to read it, Honorable Kiari. Please read it and put it next to the one for Malaysia. Put it next to the one from South Africa. Why do we now want to go for this? What I'm hoping to do, we want to take this thing, make it relevant for now. How do we make it relevant? We don't need to go and produce those old computers. We want to produce these things. We want to produce vehicles that are now valid, hybrid, electrical vehicles, vehicles that can run on hydrogen, vehicles that can be hybrid. Mr. Honorable Speaker, sir, when I was the mayor of Kisumu, we started the bicycles, border, as my brother says. And there were not more than 300 borders in Kisumu. Within a year, with support from other people and the United Nations, we were over 10,000 border bicycles. We then graduated to motorcycles. We graduated to three-wheelers. Now the motorcycle is one of the most important vehicles in this country. You can go from point A to point B on a motorcycle. Many of us who don't care too much about big things have ridden motorcycles. I've seen Honorable Kiari read. If I want to go to a place where there's a lot of traffic, I'll ride the border. The border is what we call, as you call it, grassroots economy, bottom up, if you want to call it that way. So what we need to do is to take those bottom up. Let's not go on the big vehicles. Okay, we want the lorries and everything else. The engines are made. The rest of that car, other than perhaps the engine, and the engine block. We have the technology to make everything else here. We can make those bodies, we can make everything we can. But this thing says, this policy says that a National Automotive Council is to be set up. Now who is in the council? Those old thinking of the past, KM, KVM, Nanani. They don't want produce. They don't want to have informer. The Toyotas are selling beautiful, they're selling their vehicles. The Japanese are selling their scrap vehicles here, and we are going and buying them. We are a consumer society. So when you hear, I mean, in my time I thought a Porsche was one vehicle that was used for specialized people. A Porsche. Nowadays you see Porsches here like anything, and they're not the Porsches we used to know. So what we are trying to suggest here is let's do the thing, but in a new way, like we did M-Pesa. We did not go for those old analog machines. We went for change. So the change we want is hybrid. The change we want is electric. I was in Pakistan not long ago, maybe 2 years ago. And then I found out something the other day. And I'm telling you this. They are taking a motorcycle, they're changing the rear wheel, and that rear wheel has an electric motor in it. It costs no more than So the time is, that's what we need to do. We don't need long, drawn-out policies. That's very good. Let's do them. But those are old policies that are going to take us back to the past. We need to look at this policy, and Honorable Kerry and others who know about this, we need to call them and say, hold on a second, where are we going? Are you now trying to tell us we want to build trams in London, here in Nairobi, or do we want to bring old technology? We don't. We want new technology. We need bicycle. I mean, the thing is, you know, bicycle. Why can't we make a bicycle here in Dagoretti? They say it is that little thing is called an engine. We can't make that engine. Surely not. We have made so many things. At numerical machines, Honorable Chair, I used to sell tractors. We used to bring scrap tractors from the UK. I used to rebuild that tractor completely as new here in Kenya and sell them for 2-year guarantees. And there was in Dagoretti that I used to do that. I used to go to numerical machines. If there was something wrong with the camshaft, I had it made there. I went, where the block was broken, we fixed it there. So I think what we have is the capacity. So, Mr. Chair, with those few remarks, I want to end, but I say this is the right thing, but in the wrong way. You don't need what we are seeing here. It is not what we want. We don't want a sledgehammer. We want to do it properly. Thank you very much, and I look forward to interacting with those people who have planned this policy. And let's not just do it because of the sake of policy, because it's been done by about 100 countries. Why do we want to be 100?
Very well. Your time is over. Well spoken, and I'm very happy that leadership is in the House. Honorable Wako is here and listening. I think the contributions are immense and good. Next to speak on this is Honorable Andrew Okwome, Karachuonyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now I support this, this motion under persuasion that we have to look at unemployment position in this country. We have also to consider the development situation in this country. We must be innovative. We must find out how we can create employment and also develop Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I do realize that most of the machineries we need are imported, nearly all of them. But is it that we are to do this permanently in our lives? The automotive policy that we use must be changed and tamed to help us develop Kenya and to help us create development. Our agriculture is in need of development. We need to have automotive policy that can enable agriculture to be developed. We import tractors. Some of the tractors we need could be very simple types which I'm told are found in India, and maybe if we decide to manufacture them, it won't cost us so much. We have to import that kind of technology into this country. That's the technology part, not the machineries. That's the kind of policy I think will help us out of the problem that we find ourselves in. The same thing goes with motor vehicles. I know my colleagues have spoken about this, and if you listen to them, they are really on excellent points which can help us. We have to change so that we are not the consumers at all times. I was listening the other time when the president of this country was speaking, and in fact, he adopted a policy of non-subsidy for consumption. He could only do it for production. If we are importing vehicles, even for the government or whatever, it doesn't matter how expensive they are. With that policy, we could not get any, subsidy cannot be given because we are consumers. But if we were to manufacture some of these things, the government will come in because that is production. That way, we'll be directing our resources to what will help us and create employment I was talking about. It will help us to increase our GDP level high enough to cause good development that we so much need. Things like even the motorcycles, the boda as it is known in Kenya, those do not need very complicated technology. If we adopt a policy that can help us manufacture these kind of machineries, we will be doing so good for our country. I know my friend who has just spoken, and he was waving to me negatively to indicate to me that this kind of policy has been adopted, and it was adopted long time ago, but the implementation becomes a problem. Yes, that kind of situation is not isolated. We have so many cases where we make decisions, but implementation is conspicuously absent. So that's a different kind of problem. It is not what we can solve when we are discussing this issue. But in my opinion, the motion is timely, it is good. Even if it was there before, we need to renew it, and we need to ensure that implementation part is done with. Now, Mr. Speaker, the other part of the policy I would have liked us to really emphasize on is the spare parts for all these kind of machineries which we import. If you have a vehicle and a spare part is broken and you want to replace it, sometimes you wait for it to be ordered from abroad. Yet, the technology to produce it is probably present in this country. I would really wish that we examine these kind of things thoroughly and compare what is needed with our capacity, financially or in human resource, so that we can be able to do what can help this country develop, in order that we and our youth can get employment for us to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for having given me time to contribute, and I do emphasize that I support this policy. Thank you.
Honorable David Mboni, Kitui Rural.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to also to put my remarks to this policy. And on the onset, I suppose the policy, the session paper number 1 of 2002 on national automobile policy. Mr. Speaker, why I support this policy, this session paper, this policy, is because this policy will provide an enabling environment for automotive industry players to realize their potential and position Kenya as a major automotive manufacturer and improve the local automobile assembly ecosystem in order to expand local market size by promotion of local parts. Mr. Speaker, Vision 2030 and Agenda 4, they have put manufacturing sector as one of the pillars of this economy because of its potential to contribute to the GDP, gross domestic product, significant. Manufacturing sector creates jobs. More the jobs in this, more the jobs are in manufacturing sector. It promotes productivity and growth in this country. It also promotes innovation and services and trade, because most of the people are in this sector. They are in trade and they are also in manufacturing. The sector contributes around 8% of the GDP. And automotive subsector is one of the subsectors in the manufacturing sector. And this sector in Kenya is growing very fast. As you can see the growth in the National Economic Survey. Demand for the spares is also growing very fast. However, Kenya remains a small producer of automobile services in this country as compared to South Africa and Nigeria, Egypt and Morocco. So Kenya is a small player in manufacturing of automobiles in this country. Mr. Speaker, you recall 1990s, Kenya produced its first car, the Nyayo car. And I don't know what happened with that car. It's unfortunate that as Kenyans, we prepare goods which are produced from other countries. I tend to think if we emphasized using that car and encouraging the local manufacturer to continue produce that car, even if it was moving at 80 kilometers per hour, I think we could have improved that car by now. And I think we'll be a big exporter of vehicles to East and Central Africa. And we'll be earning a lot of foreign exchange and creating a lot of jobs if we continued with that that venture. Market for cars in this country is quite big. You can see the number of vehicles which you are importing. The saloon cars and also big cars. We are importing cars, motorcycles, and tractors in this country. And we are only for manufacturing new cars, only for public transport, the matatus, the big matatus. Otherwise, the Nissans and whatever we are importing. And we need, as a country, we need to think about using our own products. Even if we produce a car, even if it's not as ugly as what, let's use it. We are going to improve it as time goes on. But the moment we think about a Mercedes-Benz, a very good car from Japan or German, we are not going to move. So this policy to me is very important, and we need, as a parliament, to approve it, and the ministry concerned to come up with guidelines to implement the policy, so that at least we can move. Because this policy, if implemented, we are going to create jobs for our students. There are so many students who are coming from universities, engineers, mechanics, electrical engineers, and automobile engineers. I remember last time, 2 months ago, there was somebody who had a former student, who had a first-class degree in mechanical engineering, and he had no jobs. He had no job. In fact, he was doing cultivation somewhere in, I think, Mulango, somewhere there. So if this industry is really working and it has potential, that person will not be able to be doing manual jobs in the farms. We have students from polytechnics, the TPETs, which we are constructing in each constituency. The designers, all these ones will be able to get jobs, and they will also get incomes and increase the productivity, the GDP of this country. The new cars, if we produce them, they are going to reduce pollution. Pollutions, when you talk about climate change, pollution is one of the factors which are contributing to climate change. It is also going to save us our foreign exchange, because we are using a lot of foreign exchange to import cars. And that's why you see the dollar is increasing is appreciating every day, and our shilling is going down every day. But if we are buying these products, the cars and spare parts from this country, we will not be facing this kind of thing. And you know, when you import something, you are exporting a job. And we have so many youth, as I stated, who needs this job. So, but as we implement the policy, we also need to think about our roads, because our roads are very congested. Traffic jams are everywhere. I mean, you can't move. We need to design our roads such a way that we have walkways for pedestrians, and also bicycles. If you go to Europe, and particularly in German, I think they have the best lottery system. There are parts for where bicycles are used, motorcycles used, and the people where they walk and where vehicles work. So this is the kind of thing which we need to think about, so that at least we move this country forward. With those few remarks, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Well spoken. Next is Honorable Beatrice Elachi, Member of Parliament, Dagoretti North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the motion on session of paper number 1 of 2022 on national automotive policy. Mr. Speaker, as I start, first of all, I want to thank all the mechanics in this country who have employed many people, who are the ones who ensure that our cars are moving on our roads. That means that if we have indeed a national policy of automating and ensuring that they are able to now start just assembling the whole car, they will do it. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that kills this industry is how we have allowed, and you'll find those who do business now, who bring in these cars, are the ones who will now go and try to lobby to ensure this policy does not work. Today in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we assemble many parts of our vehicles in this country. We are able to assemble whenever a car comes in, but at the same time, you realize there are different parts also that we are able to manufacture in this country. But one of the things we must do is to learn the way the Chinese have done their policies, that they ensure you also bring in expertise who will support as you start building those small industries. But then you have an expert who comes in, and every person or any child of Kenya who will want to be in this industry, you are trained in a way you become an expert of one. If you're an expert of an engine, it is the engine. If you're an expert of just putting in the brake pads, you are that expert. And therefore, when you're assembling the whole vehicle, it moves from one station to the other, and you'll find you're creating jobs for many of our young people who have come from TVETs, who have come from the technical schools that we have, but they are able to now go into a plant and assemble this vehicle. We must be also very aware that we are in East Africa, and so when we want to do or even to manufacture the vehicle, then you must look what type of a vehicle is being used in Tanzania, what type of a vehicle is it a left hand, is it a right hand, and so that we are able also to trade within the East Africa. The policy also brings what the other day, Mr. Speaker, you remember, we were saying that we unify the policy for SMEs. This also comes in to assist, that if you bring together this industry and you are able to remember all the mechanics that are there in every of our areas, you'll find young people trying to do small jobs, but they've employed each other. But I'm telling you, when you take your vehicle there, it comes out as a new vehicle, and they've just taken, some of the parts have been taken from Kenya, some of it they look at it and modify, but your vehicle, Mr. Speaker, will proceed. One thing we have to also ask ourselves is, how do we now work closely with Mombasa County to ensure that we also have a free port? That port does not mean now you'll come and dump vehicles there, but it means if you can indeed ensure you implement this policy and actualize what we are talking about, then those new cars are the cars you'll find at that free port. That anyone will come from the other countries now to buy new cars. You find that many companies, Mr. Speaker, are now in Kenya doing the assembly. Toyota is doing the same. You find Peugeot is doing the same. And many others who came in during the last regime who really wanted to work with the locals. And so what they do, they bring all the parts from their countries, we assemble. We will learn the same system. Instead of them bringing that same technology they are using in their countries, they bring it now here, because at least we've given them for the last 3-4 years. That's what they've been doing. And if you are building a country and empowering that country with capacity, I think our people now have learned the technology. It is time we assemble ourselves and have a plant that assembles any vehicle in this country. The other thing we need now to really work around, before we even think of a vehicle, Mr. Speaker, all these borders that are here, I think it is important for us to ask ourselves as a country, can we assemble the the bike? Can we be able? Because even right now, Mr. Speaker, the spare parts, you find we are still importing for borders, and yet we have more than 3 to 5, 10, I think now 5 to 6 million borders across this country. And so it is already an industry. If we just had a plant that you are able to assemble, then that is one industry that would have built the economy of this country. We believe in the 2030 vision, Mr. Speaker, that it was to build this country into a middle-income country. And so for me, even as we speak about the session of paper, there are some things that government has to go back and look in it and ask themselves, is it important that as we do all this, we should never leave those who already are in the Juakali sector, and they are doing it. This is how you promote, and they are fantastic mechanics, Mr. Speaker, who have worked with Toyota Kenya, who have worked, and they are outside there, and it means they understand the industry already. It's only that they are SMEs that are trying to build themselves. And I hope that even in the paper, that we have been able to capture how we are going to build their capacity, their innovation, how we are going to do research to help even them Some of them can go back to class a bit and just build themselves in the new technologies that we are seeing. We are seeing electric cars coming up, and so let us build the capacity so that they understand. You can even take them out of the country. That is how many people, many countries have built their own young people and innovation. And I think Rwanda is doing it so well. So you take out your students for 3-4 months. When they come back, they are able. We have, Mr. Speaker, the standard gauge railway. So the locomotives, I doubt whether we have ever thought. We took our students to China. They were able to learn everything. But we need to ask ourselves, and maybe we need to have one day a sitting just to ask them, were you trained on how to be a mechanic? That when this locomotive needs to be repaired or maintenance, that it is you, that we are not calling again a Chinese to come and do that maintenance, is very important. So I'm hoping even as they speak about automotive policy, it is capturing everything that evolves around the transport sector. While we think about the infrastructure, we must think about negotiating also and enhancing that negotiation with the countries that already have developed so that we are able to work together. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I just want to say we do this is a house that brings out so many interesting things for the country, issues that can really transform our country. But I'm just hoping after we finish our part, Mr. Speaker, that also those who have been given that responsibility can be able to change, can be able to, we must see this transformation, Mr. Speaker. It is very sad, and I know you have been here now for 2 terms. It is so unfortunate that we just say, we have given, the laws are there, the implementation part is there, and yet those who are supposed to implement now in government, they find it so difficult to just do what Kenyans would wish to do. So I'm hoping, even as we talk about all these things, that we will see that implementation. And the implementation committee should take things very seriously to oversight and see that these are things that have been operationalized, but more importantly, have been implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That last bit, Honorable Wako, is for you, implementation. Next to speak on this is Honorable Zamzam Chimba, Mombasa County MP.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Leo naona mjadala mzuri sana, sijui kwa nini tuko wachache, lakini tutasukuma gurudumu polepole. Nikiangalia mambo ya viwanda na naangalia kwangu Pwani, naona tuna sehemu kubwa na viwanda vingi, yani kuna industries nyingi ambazo wanatengeza magari, wanatengeza tuk-tuk, wanatengeza na yale mapikipiki. Lakini ningependa kwanza kama inawezekana serikali iweze kwanza kupunguza ushuru kwa zile materials ambazo zinatumiwa kwenye kuassemble haya magari, kwa sababu kama kweli tunataka kuboresha uchumi wa Kenya, na sisi tuna nafasi kubwa sana ya kuweza kutengeza magari yetu tukaweza kuuza, basi ni lazima pia tufikirie tunatumia mbinu gani. Ukiangalia Mombasa tuko na Simba Corporate ambao wanatengeza Mitsubishi, Fuso, tuko na wale ambao wanatengeza Tata, wanatengeza Toyota, Hino, wanatengeza Scania, Volvo, Daewoo, na hata tuna Abson Motors ambao wako sawa kabisa kwenye kuangalia matuktuk. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa kusema hivi, watoto wetu wengi vijana wako kule nyumbani, wamesoma, wanajua ufundi, wameenda katika vyuo vikuu, lakini hawajapata mahali ambapo waweza wakaboresha ujuzi wao, wakaweza kuinua uchumi wa Kenya. Na mimi naangalia katika Automobile, naona kama kuna nafasi kubwa sana ya sisi badala ya kuleta magari kutoka nje, na hapa Kenya tuweza kuwa na vijana ambao waweza wakapewa vifaa na wakaweza kuwa sponsors vizuri, wakaweza kutengeza magari yetu na ikaja vizuri pia kwenye bei ambayo ni nzuri, na sisi pia tukaweza kutoa magari yetu tukiweza kuuza katika mataifa mengine kama vile tunavyonunua kutoka kwao, na sisi pia tuwe tumeboresha viwanda vyetu vya Kenya, watoto wetu wapate ajira pale, waweze kuonyesha uweledi na ubora katika vile walivyosoma katika college, waweze kutengeza pia magari yetu. Bwana Spika, mimi ningependa pia kusupport mjadala huu kwa kina sana. Tukiangalia bodaboda wako wengi kweli katika taifa hili, lakini ukiangalia vizuri utapata hata yale mapikipiki yao wanaenda kuchukua kwenye deni. Anachukua deni kisha atalipa pengine mara 2 ya ile ambayo ingekuwa pengine imetengezwa hapa nyumbani na ikaweza kumfaa zaidi. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa kusema vijana wetu wanaharibika mashinani. Vijana wameingia katika drugs, vijana wameingia katika makundi haramu, vijana wameingia katika makundi ya kumaliza watu kule vijijini kwa sababu wamekosa nafasi za kazi, kwa sababu kuna watu wengine wanachukua advantage ya hali zao, wanaweza kuwaingiza katika vitu ambavyo havifai. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa serikali kwa mjadala huu na upongeza sana tena sana mjadala wa kuweza kufungua viwanda vya kuweza kutengeza magari yetu wenyewe, tutengeze matuktuk. Watu kama Absa Moto wako pale wanangojea, wanasubiri. Pengine kama sisi tutapunguza bei ama ushuru wa hivi vitu ambavyo wanavileta kuassemble gari, kuassemble tuktuk, tuweze kupunguza kwa muda pengine wa miaka 3 ama 5, na tuweze kuwapatia vijana nafasi ya kuingia katika industries hizi, waweze nao kujifunza. Wakijifunza pengine itakuwa ni miaka 3-5, watakuwa tumeshaboresha hii industry, na tunaweza sasa kuongeza, tukiweza kusafirisha na kuuza gari zetu katika mataifa mengine, na huku uchumi wa Kenya ukiweza kupanda. Bwana Spika, mimi kama mama ndani ya kaunti ya Mombasa nasikitika sana. Nafasi iko hapa nzuri, na ninajua kuwa kama alivyosema mbunge mwenzangu hapa kuwa ni mswada huu uliweza kupitishwa miaka iliyopita, lakini pia nina furaha kwa sababu niko katika implementation committee. Kwa hiyo nitakuwa mmoja kati ya wale ambao nitafuatia kwa kina kuhakikisha kuwa policy hii imefuatwa na tuweze kuboresha taifa letu katika kuwezesha kutengeza magari kama mataifa mengine, na tuweze kupeana nafasi kwa vijana wetu wa ajira katika serikali. Katika hili mimi nawapongeza sana katika huu mjadala wa leo. Bwana Spika, anaangalia sana pia sekta ya tuktuk. Kama Mombasa utapata wana import nafikiri kutoka India. Pengine hapa mtoto wa kiume amehangaika, ameenda juu chini, utapata tuktuk ile ananunua katika kwa bei ya 400,000 ama 500,000. Lakini ikiwa leo serikali yaweza kufuatilia kwa kina jambo hili la kufungua viwanda, na hasa mimi naomba viwanda hivi viwe ndani ya Mombasa County, kwa sababu mambo mazuri sana yameonekana kule, na tuna wale tayari ambao wako wanafuatilizia na wanaleta kina Scania, hawa kina Absan Moto, hawa kina Fuso, kina Simba wako kule tayari. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa kiwanda kiwekwe kule na tuweze kukiboresha kwa kuleta bidhaa kwa ushuru wa chini, ili vijana waweze kusoma, na hawa ambao wamejitolelea pia tuweze kuwapunguzia ushuru, ili na sisi tupate ile elimu ya kutosha. Wale vijana wetu waliosoma katika makoleji waweze kuboreka zaidi. Hata kama watatoa gari aina gani, mimi naomba Wakenya tununue ili tuweze kuwa boost hawa watoto. Hata kama watatengeza tuktuk, pengine melemea upande mmoja, tujue watoto wetu wanajimudu, wanajaribu, tuweza kuwa boost, baadaye watakuja kuwa bora zaidi. Na ninajua Kenya iko na tajriba ya kuweza kutengeza vitu ambavyo ni vizuri. Kuna wakati mmoja nilikuwa naangalia televisheni, nikaona mwanaume kule mashinani, mashambani, ametengeza gari, na lile gari lilikuwa linaenda. Nikawa najiuliza, huyo mtu angepata mtu wa kumsukuma kidogo katika kichwa chake, akampa vifaa vinavyopasa kuwa navyo, basi angeweza kutengeza gari nzuri zaidi. Kuna mwingine niliona ameng'ang'ana kutengeza ndege. Mimi nasikitika, Tuna watu ambao wamebarikiwa sana, akili kubwa ndani ya taifa hili, lakini wamekaa mahali wanasikitika, pengine hata chakula hawana. Naomba serikali ichukue nafasi hii na iweze kutangaza wazi peupe kuwa yule mwenye ana ujuzi ambaye anaona aweza kufanya kazi hii, tuna kiwanda sehemu fulani, tuna walimu watakao waboresha, njooni mjiunge ili tuweze kuinua uchumi wa Kenya, tupatie vijana ajira waweze kujijenga. Kwa haya machache, Bwana Spika, mimi nashukuru sana, na leo ni siku ya furaha kwangu sana. Na kwa vile mjadala huu umetokana na serikali, nina imani viwanda vitawekwa na vijana wataweza kufaidi. Asante sana Bwana Spika. Huyu ni Mama Zamzam Chimba Muhammad kutoka Mombasa County. Asante sana.
Vema kabisa Mama Zamzam Chimba. Atakayefuata kuzungumzia mswada atakuwa ni Mheshimiwa John Gakuchia, Mheshimiwa wa Mkuruweni. Sijui kama na yeye pia atazungumza kwa Kiswahili.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I can speak in Swahili, but you don't do it immediately after Mama Zamzam has done it so fluently. You wait for another day when you do it on your own. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to take this opportunity to support this sessional paper by the government, and I want to appreciate that for once we see a government which has intentions and is moving forward to ensure that these intentions also become a reality, especially in ensuring that our country takes on the next step in terms of manufacturing, in terms of industrialization, in terms of production. For far too long, this country has celebrated much more of a service industry, which does not really produce. And when you don't produce, you also don't grow the economy. And for us now to see this kind of a motion and a sessional paper, I really want to appreciate what the government is thinking about. And for that reason, I would like to add my word. I would like to add my voice on this and say that if and when we start manufacturing cars and assembling them in Kenya, we are automatically going to create employment in our country. And unemployment in Kenya is a crisis that is facing us and that we must deal with. And this is one of the ways in which, as a country, we are going to be dealing with the problem of unemployment. And it's not far-fetched, Mr. Speaker, that we are thinking about manufacturing of cars. I am reminded of a gentleman who used to be a tutor here in the Nairobi Institute of Technology, it is Nairobi Technical Institute, by the name Gitonga Mushao Wadhanga. This gentleman is now late, and he hailed from my constituency. And Mr. Gitonga actually did assemble a limousine, which was showcased in all our media stations. And we celebrated him for that. I remember even when we went for his burial a short while ago, a few months ago, the limousine was parked somewhere as a testimony of a Kenyan who lived and who gave his all, who was innovative and attempted to manufacture or to assemble a limousine. This he had done from B-15, those old type B-15s. And he was able to make a very nice limousine, which is still there till today, to date. And if our late friend had been able to get support from government, if this kind of a session of paper had been done and government had implemented this arrangement, he would probably have had support from government to start an industry that would have seen us growing our economy, promoting also that trade, and ensuring that we also become manufacturers and assemblers of limousines in Kenya. And that's why I believe in this country we have the capacity, we have the innovative minds in our young people, that we can be able to produce something that will be so unique. We don't have to just think about simple and small industries like manufacturing of smaller vehicles like the tuk-tuks. They are okay, it's okay, we can do that. But I know for sure as a country we have the capacity to do even much more sophisticated vehicles, and will be the pride of Africa. I know if we do implement this policy, we are going to generate, or we are going to provoke, and we are going to stir other economic factories and industries in this country that are going to start based on this. You can imagine we have a leather industry in Kenya which does so well, or which will do so well to produce the covers for the vehicles that we are going to be assembling and manufacturing in this country. We will have the industry which is dealing with the mirrors and glass. I'm sure this is another industry that would actually come up in a very serious way. We have bodybuilding. This one is there, especially when you're looking at the minibuses and the trucks. We manufacture most of these, or we assemble most of those bodies from this country. But again, it's going to be enhanced. Mr. Speaker, I see a situation where if we manufacture these vehicles from this country, we are going to be an exporter to our neighboring countries. Most of the African countries, we can now have them importing their vehicles from this country, because then we are going to build a vehicle that is going to be built for resilience in this continent, because we understand our continent well. So we are going to have a more resilient vehicle that is going to be sold to other neighboring countries. And that means that then we are going to have inflows of foreign currency to our country. As it is today, we are spending rather too much on foreign currency outflows as we import vehicles from other countries. And of course, you know, most of the times we are importing vehicles which are more than 6-7 years old, and for that reason, which have a lot of carbon emissions into our air. And for that reason, you find that our air around this city is not quality, and it affects our health every other time. So if we do manufacture our own vehicles, we are likely now to have clean emissions. We are going to hopefully even take advantage of the new innovations in the market to be able to come up with even electrical vehicles that are not going to be consuming, or are not going to be generating or are not going to be powered by the fossil fuels that have very harmful environmental impact in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I really want to support this motion so that we generate employment, so that we grow our economy, so that we support the TVET industry, because, of course, you know, if we are going to be in this industry, we are going to require a lot of people who are well-skilled and trained. That means then we are also going to be promoting our TVET institutions. I have, for example, Mukurweini Technical Institute that will probably produce a lot of young people who have the capacity, the knowledge, the skills to be able to participate and to be employed in some of those industries which are going to help us as a country to be able to improve the well-being of our young people. And so, Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I want to support this motion so that we can also improve the environment. And today, all of us are aware, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of environment is taking center stage in our discussions as it is shaping the way we are moving as a country and as a globe. And so I dare say that as I support this motion, or as I support this sessional paper, I would like us to think about production of vehicles that are going to be powered by clean energy, so that we forfeit the fossil fuels, which of course you know have destabilized our economy in a big way because of the impact of international trends and the geopolitical politics that have affected the issues of exports and imports, especially when it comes to the issues of petroleum across the globe. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support.
Very well. Honorable members, notwithstanding the motion passed earlier today, which increased the time for debate on this sessional paper from 2 hours 30 minutes to 5 hours 30 minutes, there being no other member with interest to speak on this sessional paper, number 1 of 2022 on the national automotive policy, I will therefore call upon the mover to reply. Thank you. I will now give this opportunity to Deputy Majority Party Whip Honorable Naomi Wako to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I stand to reply to this very important motion that we have debated. The members have given it a lot of attention, and that is why at the beginning we requested for more time. That has happened. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the honorable members who have taken their time to support this procedural motion and given us great ideas on how to implement where the gaps are. And from the debate, it is quite clear that Kenyans are looking forward to the implementation of this session of paper number 1 of 2022. As a government that is in place now, the Kenya Kwanza government, I want to also congratulate our government to come up with this and to revive this, because as we have seen, since 2018, this policy has been there but not gotten any attention. But through this government now, we can see there is light at the end of the tunnel. Mr. Speaker, from the members' debate or contributions, we have also seen that Kenyans are people who are really talented. They are very creative and innovative. It is only that they have not gotten the opportunity to exercise the gifts that they have. Others have tried, but they have not succeeded simply because they have not received any support from the government. And we all know very well the goals of Vision 2030 is to transform our country into middle-income country, providing a high quality of life to all its citizens. We cannot achieve this dream if we cannot promote industrialization, if we cannot encourage our young engineers. We know very well, again, we have many graduates. We have taken so many of our young people to TVETs, and many of them come out with brilliant ideas, brilliant skills and knowledge. But unfortunately, they have not gotten the opportunity to exercise or to give back that to the community. We know country's prosperity is driven by radical actions to drive inclusivity in order to develop and also to make sure that we don't leave behind any member of the country. Mr. Speaker, it is quite encouraging that today members of parliament have deliberated, have debated, and have come up with way forward on this particular session of paper, which I believe, because there is a lot of goodwill from the government, we will be able to implement as soon as possible so that we see the result and enjoy the fruit of our labor. Mr. Speaker, we know that doing this will have positive impact on our GDP. Currently, as a country, we are suffering simply because we do not have, or we are economically suffering because of the financial challenges, and we are not able to create our own wealth and also have enough for our country. But doing this will create jobs for our young people, will give hope to the hopeless, will give Kenya the pride that we need. You know, sometimes, even when we look at Kenya Airways, with all the challenges the company goes through, we look at it and we feel proud of the service that it is giving to the people. And as you know, they clearly say, the pride of Kenya, the pride of Africa, this will be another pride of our country. And it will have positive impact on the entire nation. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that our country, Kenyans are very hardworking people. They always look forward to a better life. And we know that every year in Kenya, we import thousands and thousands of vehicles. In 2021, there was an increment of 14% from the vehicles that we imported in 2020. In fact, the exact numbers are that 2020, we imported 128 vehicles. And that moved with 14% to 107,499 vehicles. That is huge investment that goes out to another country. In fact, the resources that would have helped us and transformed our own country here is being transferred to another country, whereby we buy second-hand vehicles that come to us. Of course, as the owner of the vehicle, you may be happy, but then, apart from you and your family, no one else enjoys that. But if we encourage our own and come up or develop that vehicle making, and people come up with that, then we will be able to promote that, and Kenyans will be happy and will enjoy. The majority of the vehicles that I mentioned earlier are all imported, and the benefits gone to others. Again, when we look at the duty, the import duty, which is 25%, exercise duty, which is 20%, value added, which is 16%, and import declaration, which is 3.5%. That again increases the cost, which by buying our own vehicles, we'll be able to reduce and see how best we can benefit one another. Mr. Speaker, I have taken note of members' concerns. The implementation committee has to be keen enough, and we see how best this will be implemented. The government is keen enough, and our president in particular is keen enough. And in fact, this works well with our vision and mission. The bottom-up idea has its place in this. And there is need to review this again before we implement. That is also well noted. Setting some budget aside so that we don't just pass this and struggle is our priority. And I'm happy the chairman of budget, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, is here with us. And I'm sure he will give us all the attention that this deserves. Creating space and opportunity to our young ones so that they can exercise the skills, the knowledge they have acquired will give hope to many Kenyans. This will promote us, and soon after implementation, we will start exporting our motor vehicles, and that then will remain in history of our country. I'm happy to associate myself with this particular one, and I thank the entire House for supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Leader. You really needed to finish the matter or reply properly. So give her the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to reply. Thank you.
Very well. Member for Mukurweni.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of our Standing Orders 53 and paragraph 3, I wish to request you, Honorable Speaker, to defer putting of the question for this session of paper to another day. Honorable Speaker, I think it will be important that we defer this particular question so that we can have it hopefully next week, and we have the implementation done immediately. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Chair Budget, you'll have a chance to speak on another matter. I can see you had made a request. Members, following the request by the Honorable Kaguchia, I direct that the question for this motion to be put when the House sits next. It's now time to adjourn the House, honorable members. There being no other business, and the time being 6:27 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, 29th November at 2:30 p.m.
Resolves to exempt the businesses appearing as order number 10 in today's order paper from the provisions of Standing Order 40 subsection 3, a day allocated for business not